is truth in journalism, where brave men and women gave voice to the voiceless. But then the corporations bought the journalist, poisoning the news that we are fed. With those tainted sources, all we ever ate was a steady diet of status quo. This hijacked narrative hid the truth of mass suffering, injustice, and corruption throughout our land. Status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo. To expose this shift to oligarchy came a band of honest journalists. They left the studio and hit the streets to give the microphone back to the people. From sea to sea, the people were empowered to share their truth. Their voices no longer stifled, reclaimed their power. Join the media revolution now.
Mic check. What's up? Should be good. Go ahead.
1 2 1 2. Jordan Sheridan live from New York. I am with Ty Bayliss. Sorry we're a little bit late. Obviously, a lot of news going on in the last 24 hours, and I am going to call it tragic, but it's also not unpredictable, unfortunately, in this country. So if you don't know, Ty is now in New York full time. So we were a little bit late because we set up, we're actually using a different camera now. So hopefully the broadcast is looking a little better. And we're going to be making some, production improvements as we go. Enhancements. So hope everyone's doing well under the circumstances. I don't think I need to go down through the whole list. I'm sure most of you know that yesterday, I believe it was around 11 a.m. Central Time down in El Paso, Texas. A 21-year-old. Why does my mother always call me while I'm live? A 21-year-old. His name is Patrick Crusius. He went into a Walmart down in El Paso. He mowed down he killed 20 innocent people. 27 are wounded. My last time hearing reports are that 3 of the wounded are in critical condition, and many others are in stable condition. So obviously the death toll might increase from that, and not even 24 hours later. Even 24 hours later. Like I remember, you when we saw each other this morning, you said to me, "Yeah, there's another shooting."
Yeah,
it's just
it wasn't 20. It was because that happened yesterday afternoon. When I remember, I didn't get back here till like 1 o'clock.
Right.
And then I saw it, and that's when I went live on Instagram.
Right.
And so it was maybe 12 hours because
right.
it was the nightclub, so it wasn't past 2. The only place that stayed open until 4 is Vegas in New York.
And MD is right, I should say. 21-year-old white male, Patrick Crusius. Good correction. Thank you for that. We'll call him alleged. He's been apprehended in El Paso. And less than 24 hours later, 24-year-old, right now alleged, Connor Betts, murdered 9 people at a bar in Dayton, Ohio, and 26 others are injured. In the case of Dayton, Ohio, Ty, I'll cover Long Beach event if you want. I don't know what that means.
Bernie's going to be in Long Beach.
Okay.
That's the tall guy that we interviewed.
So I don't know if, I think this is relevant. From all accounts, there was police in Dayton just patrolling that area anyway. And, when we criticize the police, they deserve it. But I think in this case, apparently they got in there within 1 minute.
Which they said he could have killed.
Yeah, he could have killed dozens more. Which shows you he was able to kill 9 people in 60 seconds. And it could have been a lot worse. Also relevant to say, in the El Paso shooting, 3 Mexicans were killed. Obviously, El Paso is right on the border of Mexico. 7 other Mexicans were injured. And I think Well, first of all, I'm not gonna like go crazy pushing these things today, but remember, if you press the like button, it's the thumbs up button right under this video. More people will see this stream, and I think we need as many people to see this as possible. So there's 300 people watching right now. If you don't mind, press the thumbs up button. If you're watching on your phone and you're in the live chat on your phone, all you got to do is press the X button on the live chat. It'll take you, the thumbs up will pop. Press that thumbs up button. It's just how YouTube works. More people, the more likes, the more people who don't currently see this live stream in their feeds, it'll pop up.
My arm is up like this, you guys, just because my shoulder's messed up. So
Yes, we are the walking wounded. I'm not even going to bother. Well, we shouldn't talk. Our problems are pale in comparison, so forget that. So there's a lot of different ways to go. We're going to get to the gun aspect of this because the headline is the United Guns of America, contrary to what Republicans say and gun manufacturers say and Ted Cruz says and Marco Rubio says. People have mental illness all over this world.
Yeah.
But in other countries, people with mental illness are not able to carry out heinous crimes with a bottle opener or a knife. You've seen some stabbing events in other countries, but you have multiple people stabbing many people. In these cases, you usually have one shooter. And again, in the Ohio case, we're talking this alleged shooter, 24-year-old, killed 9 people in 60 seconds. Would have been way worse if the police did not respond the way they did.
Yeah.
So I want to start with the obvious, which is I don't think anti-immigrant fervor started under Donald Trump. I think anti-immigrant fervor, frankly, started probably dating back to Reagan. I think it ratcheted up. Anti-immigrant favor, blaming Mexicans and Muslims and brown people as the other, ratcheted up heavily under Newt Gingrich and those Republicans in the 90s. And then, obviously, it got really jacked up beginning with the Tea Party around 2010, 2011. So all of this, Mexicans as the others, and because I am going to read some of the manifesto from the El Paso shooter, because beyond the fact that he's obviously mentally unhinged, he's just wrong. This killer, this murderer, this white supremacist, let's call it what it is. He's a white supremacist. And I see some people tweeting online, he's a white nationalist. That's not the same thing as a racist. You're a fucking idiot. Whoever is tweeting those things, white nationalist, is more tribal. It's not racist. No, it's racist. Yeah. So I want to get to all of these things that I said came before Trump and built up to Trump. The otherization under Reagan, which I think increased under Gingrich and these extremist Republicans beginning in the 90s. Of course, the Tea Party, which was masked as, about debt and deficit. Well, there was a lot of white people out there with signs about Obama and Mexicans. But Donald Trump is a manifestation of all of those things, and he's a vessel for those things. And although we can't exclusively blame
Reagan,
him.
though? I think Reagan was literally had come in here mentality. Like his policies for immigration, especially in Mexico, he had the most. He wrote policies for them to be able to get in here easy.
The immigrants taking your jobs. That philosophy, and the immigrants are taking your job, and the immigrants are.
I know he came up with the woman, the queen, the what's the name queen?
The welfare queen. And by the way, I don't know. A lot of people don't know this. Ronald Reagan was the one originally with the slogan "Make America Great Again."
No. Nixon was actually the first one with "Make America Great Again." Then it went to Reagan. Then it went to Donald Trump. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So.
And America First. America First actually started from a racist thing back in the 50s.
Right.
And Reagan used it.
So.
And Roger Stone was on Reagan's campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And Nixon's campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And Trump's campaign.
So I want to, prefacing that we can't exclusively say this anti-immigrant, anti-invaders started before Donald Trump. He has greenlit it to be basically a crisis. He has made it into these people's minds a crisis. So obviously, there's many clips of this, but let's start just with this one. Do I got to do anything, or I could just play it?
But you have to put it on OBS though. You got to get to it. Yeah. There you go.
Let's play this clip for you.
At this very moment, large, well-organized caravans of migrants are marching toward our southern border. Some people call it an invasion. It's like an invasion. They have violently overrun the Mexican border. You saw that 2 days ago. These are tough people in many cases. A lot of young men, strong men, and a lot of men that maybe we don't want in our country. But again, we'll find that out through the legal process. But they've overrun the Mexican police, and they've overrun and hurt badly Mexican soldiers. So this isn't an innocent group of people. There's a large number of people that are tough. They've injured, they've attacked, and the Mexican police and military has actually suffered. And I appreciate what Mexico is trying to do. So let me begin by stating that these illegal caravans will not be allowed into the United States, and they should turn back now, because they're wasting their time. They should apply to come into our country. We want them to come into our country very much. We need people to help us with all of these companies that are coming in. We've never had anything like this. We have car companies coming in. We have Foxconn, so involved with the manufacturing of Apple products, coming in Wisconsin. We have a lot of companies coming in. They have to apply, and they have to be wonderful people that are going to love our country and work hard. And we've already dispatched for the border the United States military, and they will do the job. They're setting up right now, and they're preparing. We hope nothing happens, but if it does, we are totally prepared. Greatest military anywhere in the world, and it's going to be and is now in great shape, no longer depleted like it was when I took over as the President of the United States. The government of Mexico has generously offered asylum, jobs, education, and medical care for people within the caravan.
So that was President Trump. That was right before the midterms, and that was his strategy for the midterms to basically. Sorry if you didn't hear me. That was President Trump. Right before the midterms, we know that his strategy before the midterms was kind of the Fox News fear-mongering machine that Roger Ailes set up so powerfully, where he just doubled down. The immigrants, they're coming, they're invading. The Mexicans in their caravan, they're invading. He used phrases like attack, attack, attack. Opening sentence of the El Paso shooters manifesto. In general, I support the Christchurch shooter and his manifesto. He's referring to the New Zealand shooter. This attack is a response to the Hispanic invasion of Texas.
Like this so you can see it more.
In general, I support the Christchurch shooter and his manifesto. This attack is in response to the Hispanic invasion of Texas. So, right there, what you see is basically replicating our president's language about an invasion. You heard him refer to it as an invasion. You heard him refer to it as an attack from these sinister invaders. He went on to say, they are the instigators, not me. I am simply defending my country from cultural and ethnic replacement brought by an invasion. Some people think this statement is hypocritical because of the nearly complete ethnic and cultural destruction brought to the Native Americans by our European ancestors. But this just reinforces my point. The natives didn't take the invasion of Europeans seriously. And now what's left is just a shadow of what was. My motives for this attack are not at all personal. Actually, the Hispanic community was not my target before I read The Great Replacement. This manifesto will cover the political and economic reasons behind the attack, my gear, my expectations of what response this will generate, and my personal motivations and thoughts. So, keep it up for a second. So,
That's scary.
there's so many things wrong with this. And I'm actually going to go through this and just debunk it line by line because I think it's important. And some people don't want to show the manifesto. I think you have to. I think it's important. First of all, some people think this statement is hypocritical because of the nearly complete ethnic and cultural destruction brought to the Native Americans by our European ancestors. But this reinforces my point. The natives didn't take the invasion of Europeans seriously, and now what's left is just a shadow of what was. I don't want to speak for Native Americans, but I've spent some time with Native Americans in my reporting. I think they took it seriously. I think they were pretty outnumbered by the settlers that came over fleeing the British. It was a revolution, and although the settlers that then became the colonists and the original Americans were fleeing Great Britain and that tyranny, they did not care about butchering, killing, raping, kidnapping Native Americans. So this, maniacal psychopath that killed all these people, I don't think it's that they didn't take it seriously. I think they were pretty outnumbered, both by weapons, bodies, and sheer force. Your thoughts?
I think personally that it's scary when you think about his how he rationalized it. Now we can argue back and forth whether Native Americans took it seriously or not, but at a certain point at the beginning, Native Americans trusted them. They trusted, they welcomed them. And through them being trusting and welcoming these people, they got manipulated. And what's scary about him using that example, I actually think it's hypocritical. So people think it's hypocritical. I'm not sure if they have whatever message board that he talks and they have a discussion, but to be able to rationalize that, like, to me, I can see someone using that as a great example to why we need to kill Hispanics, because look at what we did. Like, we actually did this, and this actually can be accomplished, and it seems like they're doing it. That's scary because that's like, what do they call a call? Like a call to arms to people, because anyone can hang their hat on that just like he did. You know what I mean? Like, that manifesto, that reasoning why would make so much sense to a person that thinks the way he thinks. A white person that feels like, that's the scary thing about it to me, is that you can't. How do someone that believe that? How could someone else argue him down if they really? That's kind of scary to me. It's just because I can see a lot of people like, yeah, we did that. It can be done. So let's prevent that because they didn't. You know what I'm saying? Regardless if they did or didn't, if they believe that. And where we are now, as this is being a white country, when it started off as a native to the Americans that was already here, I don't know, man.
So I'm going to read a little bit more of this because to me, I mean, the whole thing is, if you want to read it, I mean, the whole thing is extremely troubling. But to me, the most troubling part of his manifesto, and again, for the 540 of you watching, if you press the like button, the thumbs up button right under the video, we'll get more viewers. So we got 540 watching, 300 of you have pressed the like button. Just press that thumbs up button. It'll get us way up. That's how YouTube's algorithm works. More people will see it in their feed. I usually am a little bit more exuberant when I tell you to press the like button. Not today. So just press that thumbs up button. If you're watching on your phone, temporarily just press the X button on the live chat and press that thumbs up button. So the other part of this that is ridiculous, he says it's not personal. This isn't personal. And actually the Hispanic community was not my target before I read The Great Replacement. This manifesto will cover the political and economic reasons behind this attack, my gear, my expectations of what response this will generate. In short, America is rotting from the inside out, and peaceful means to stop this seem to be nearly impossible. The inconvenient truth is that our leaders, both Democrats and Republicans, have been failing us for decades. They are either complacent or involved in one of the biggest betrayals of the American public in our history, the takeover of the United States government by unchecked corporations. I could write a 10-page essay on all the damage these corporations have caused, but here's what's important. Due to the death of the baby boomers, the increasingly anti-immigrant rhetoric of the right, and the ever-increasing Hispanic population, America soon will become a one-party state. The Democratic Party will own America, and they know it. They have already begun the transition by pandering heavily to the Hispanic voting bloc in the first Democratic debate. They intend to use open borders, free health care for illegals, citizenship, and more to enact a political coup by importing and then legalizing millions of new voters. With policies like these, the Hispanic support for Democrats will likely become nearly unanimous in the future. The heavy Hispanic population in Texas will make us a Democratic stronghold. Losing Texas and a few other states with heavy Hispanic population to the Democrats is all it would take for them to win nearly every presidential election. Although the Republican Party is terrible, many factions within the Republican Party are pro-corporation. Pro-corporation equals pro-immigration. But some factions within the Republican Party don't prioritize corporations over our future. So the Democrats are nearly unanimous with their support of immigrations, while the Republicans are divided over it. At least with the Republicans, the process of mass immigration and citizenship can be greatly reduced. The psychopaths' hate creed is what comes next. But before that, my apologies, I didn't get this loaded before. So the screen's going to go black for a second. Just give me 1 second. This chart right here, I want to show you this chart before I read the next part of this. Right here is the wage growth of America versus productivity since 1950.
You're taking out the graph part, though. They need to see that.
You've all seen this before. You see how in 1980, it was the wage growth was climbing in the 50s, steady growth of wages.
Man.
About 1980, it totally flattens to the point where it started going down, went up, going up, but this is not a chart, that red line, that shows healthy, or organic, sustainable, and livable wage growth for a nation, especially a nation of now almost 330 million people. We see on the blue line that productivity, beginning in 1980, skyrocketing. So as productivity has skyrocketed, wages are essentially flat. What began, and let's start a little earlier than 1970. You can't see it, but I'm pointing right here, about 1975. What began in the mid-1970s? I'm sure a lot of you know this. They started, and by the way, thank you for the super chats. This is a super chat. I'm just not, promoting it, but I want to thank everybody who's leaving super chats for sure. And Balthazar says, I'm for open borders. Barnes & Noble just isn't good enough for me now when it comes to chain booksellers. Okay, I don't know what that means. Thank you, Keisha Jones, $2. In the mid-1970s, they began peeling away at the regulations.
Borders was another bookstore.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I missed it. In the mid-1970s, they started peeling away at campaign finance laws. This was long before Citizens United. So the rules on how much money corporations could donate to politicians started changing. Before the super PACs, there was just political action committees. Political action committees started. modern day lobbying started. The great documentary "Get Me Roger Stone" explains a lot of this.
He's the one that started the super PACs where they would they would like raise money to do campaign ads. It would be for the president, but it wouldn't be sponsored by the president. So it'd be in his favor, but not sponsored for them. And
Right.
him, the guy that just went to jail for Trump, Manafort, and another guy started this super PAC company. They're the first ones to do it.
So all of this started in the mid 1970s. At the same time, unions were being busted beginning in the late 1970s, and that busting in the mid 1970s, Reagan took that and just doubled and tripled that union busting. You remember the air control workers, the air traffickers.
Yeah, air traffickers.
That he fired. So you got busting unions. You have.
Oh, you're talking about Reagan?
Yeah.
When they had, yeah, for sure.
You have busting unions. You have corporations, plutocrats, moneyed interests starting to buy off Congress. Sure, in the past, politicians got donations sometimes, but not to the level of the 1970s
Yeah.
and then in the 1980s. What else did you have? NAFTA in the 90s. But there were trade deals that began in the 80s that aren't as talked about. But trade deals started more in the 1970s, 1980s, and then you had NAFTA. So,
because 1970s they started closing a lot of the plants and everything. That's why a lot of people that had moved to LA became like in dire need. Like California was in bankruptcy. Like in the 70s is when Nixon started changing everything. It's like right after he changed the gold standard and took that deal with Saudi Arabia.
and by the way, let's not forget that in this wage productivity and wage growth, redlining of African American communities, which obviously, this is wages for all Americans, but wages for African Americans, if they had another line, it would be even worse because of the redlining, the racist housing and mortgages.
The unions didn't have black people. It took a while to try to get black people even in the unions that were for the people. That was just for white people for the longest.
So I want to show you the corresponding chart with this.
Now you can put it on studio mode so you can see. Oh.
Corresponding with that, here you have, you've seen it before. Beginning in 1980, skyrocketing wealth for the 1%. Mm-hmm. Just total collapse for the bottom 50%.
That's crazy. Oh.
The two things that these charts have to do with are what I just said.
Ronald Reagan.
You have campaign finance rules being peeled away. You have union busting. You have trade deals. You have redlining.
Deregulation. Definitely Reagan was part of that.
And by the way, it started under Reagan. It all continued under Bill Clinton. It continued under George Bush. It continued under President Obama. President Obama had the added obstacle of
being black,
but also, could have been a Great Depression. But
yeah.
Barack Obama was pushing trade deals like the TPP. Barack Obama didn't do anything for unions. Barack Obama didn't do anything to change, as far as I know, redlining. It's still going on. We just interviewed someone in Detroit that was talking about how bad the redlining is there. Yeah. So why I'm bringing this?
You can go to Detroit, you can go to Chicago, you can see it. It's evident. Like it's a lot of gerrymandering in Chicago, but you can see where black people live and versus where you see the residue. I don't want to say residue because it's still going on, but you see redlining just by going to the neighborhoods.
So why I wanted to show you those things first? All of this has nothing to do with Mexicans, has nothing to do with Muslims, has nothing to do with Somalians, has nothing to do with brown people. It has nothing to do with immigration. But this is what the Republican Party, the people that co-opted the Republican Party, which is the Tea Party, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, Breitbart,
Newt Gingrich.
Newt Gingrich, a lot of the idiots still today that go on MSNBC, the New York Times, CNN. This is what they have made impressionable, not just young people, but even older people, think that the reason you can't pay off your student loan debt, the reason that you have such high student loans, yet can really only get a job at Walmart or Burger King or, a decent job without health insurance or freelance or fellowship or, a lot of these not livable jobs. The reason that, you have a master's degree but can't actually get a job in what you applied to.
Yeah.
The reason that you got a job with health insurance but, you're paying out of your...
taking half your check out of your out of your check.
Right.
To get that, in addition to you have to pay a copay when you go see them. You have to spend $1,000 before the 80% actually kicks in. Like they have a certain amount you have to spend before your insurance even kicks in. Before you even get the benefits of your insurance, you have to spend like $3,000. It depends on the insurance company how much you have to spend. That's what happened to me.
So the reason they have hijacked these people's brains, and the people are not defenseless. It's not like they're just innocent flowers that were brainwashed. They're the ones carrying out these massacres. But they have hijacked these people's brains to think all of the obstacles, all of the economic insecurity, desperation is because the Mexicans have hijacked your government. The Mexicans have hijacked your country. When in reality, the corporations have hijacked your government. Yeah. It's not the Mexicans' fault that are working in those factories or the Chinese's faults that are working in those factories producing the cheaper labor. So people in Ohio or Michigan or Wisconsin or even Texas got laid off from their factory jobs, or, whether it be factory, textiles, carpentry, whatever the case may be. It's not those other countries or the workers that make cheaper labor's fault that you're losing your jobs. It's your politicians' fault. They are allowing, and there is much more reporting on this. You could just Google it. Corporations are essentially writing our trade deals. They call it multinational bilateral trade agreements.
How many times in Congress, when a congressman introduces a deal, he forgot to change the letterhead, and it's a corporation that has drafted the bill that he's sponsoring or that he's saying he wrote in favor of whatever corporation. This happens so many times. You can Google it or look at it on YouTube where they forget, like the Koch brothers, Alec, are drafting legislation in favor of these corporations. You know what I'm saying? In favor of the NRA. But one thing, unpacking that last part, is again scary to me. It's almost like the Bible. You know why people believe in the Bible? Because you got some truth and then wrapped around all these lies. That's why you have 5 different religions that almost seem similar when you read their text. In that manifesto, there were some things that were actually true about what the corporations are doing, about what the Republicans. For a person that's looking for something, it doesn't seem one-sided, and for a person that's already upset, it doesn't seem irrational what he's talking about, because he brings in they're doing this for the corporations. The corporations are then bringing all the illegal immigrants in, but it's scary because it's written well. It could be convincing to someone. That's what's scary to me.
The Unabomber, actually, in his manifesto, if you've read it, he made points that are true. The problem is, they connect dots that don't connect. Yeah. So what we were just talking about, for example, contrary to what CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times tells you, Trump didn't win because of Russia. Trump didn't win because of Comey. If you actually read the exit polls of Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, exit polls, when people vote, they get asked questions. The top 2 issues on every single one of those states, which now we're having this big discussion in the Democratic Party, who could win back those states for the Democrats? Trade, immigration. Trade, NAFTA, TPP, immigration. That is because Trump, but even preceding Trump, has been able to convince these workers that have been, and Ty and I and Jen have been to a lot of these cities and states. There are parts of Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, even like South Carolina, that
St. Louis.
St. Louis. I've never been to a war zone, but I've seen footage that don't look very different.
Yeah, you remember when we went to St. Louis, we was like literally it like stopped. It was crazy because you probably don't remember, but we were driving to go interview. We were driving to get to that place where they first met when the shooting was like at a YMCA or something like that.
Yeah.
And you like crossed and you just like, it changes. The whole scenery changes. I mean, I guess in Michigan and Detroit, it's like the change is like, I don't know, like it's long. It's like the whole city is messed up. In St. Louis, you kind of like go to a certain area and it's like one street, two streets is just completely different, and it's all around it looks a little better.
I don't want to miss any of these. Thank you, OTR Trucker, $5 in the super chat. The key to it all: Reagan changed the CPI, weighting in the inflation calculation so that only increases in wages cause inflation. Very good point. Carne Verde, $5 in the super chat. Corporate stock buybacks are also illegal until 1982. SEC deregulation, very true. We were talking about deregulation. That's very true about the corporate stock buybacks. So why we got into all this, because I'm going to read to you the part which is the most unfactual of this manifesto about the economy. The very people that have fucked demonetized, the very people that have fucked the workers of America have been able to con the same people they're fucking that the Mexicans fucked you, that the Muslims fucked you, that the Somalians fucked you.
Look, this isn't a new game, dog. This is not a new game. The elite whites have been very brilliant at convincing poor whites that it's them over there. In fact, it was us. It was the black people that was doing all that. That's why you were having the lynching. That's why Reconstruction was eliminated and was sabotaged. That's why the laws, Jim Crow laws and all those things and the black codes that was happening in the South, all those things were going on because the elite was able to convince poor whites that you're white. And as long as you're white, you're better. And it's not anything but them that's trying to take it. And would distract them from seeing that, no, it's the corporations that's doing it. They've been doing it for the longest time. They did it after, historically, Beacon's War, Beacon's, what's called Beacon Revolution, Beacon Revenge or something. The guy that was a part that tried to take over before, when the colonies were trying to tax them more. This is before before we had the Revolutionary War. They won the first battle, and then he ended up dying. This is crazy. He ended up dying.
You talking about Bunker Hill?
Huh?
You talking about Bunker Hill?
No, not Bunker Hill. That's the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about, this is before. It's called Beacon's Revenge. It's not, I forgot what they called it, but it's like this guy went and he got Native Americans, he got the free blacks, because back before they were changing the laws, they would, blacks also that they had slaves would be able to only have slavery for a certain period of time. And then after Beacon's revolt, I think it's Beacon's revolt, after his revolt and he ended up dying, what they did, and because they was getting the poor whites, because everyone was living on the coast, and the poor whites, Native Americans, and the poor blacks that were freed were all pushed inland. Once they almost took over, that's when they started changing the laws. That's when they started that's when the idea of whiteness, that's when black people couldn't work their way out of slavery. Their children have to be born in slavery. They can be killed if they escape. They can't be on trials and juries. And that's when you started to see the separation between the indentured servants and the slaves. This has been going on for a long time. Elite whites have always been able to distract you with them over there. You know what I'm saying? This is not new. It's happening to other demographics more now with Muslims and Hispanics. But they've been doing this ever since before we was even a country.
So, with all that history of what's actually taking people's jobs, what's actually causing people to have to choose between medicine or grocery, electricity or childcare, these are all things that many of you watching are deciding. Progressives have to make these decisions. Conservatives have to make these decisions. Neoliberals have to make these decisions. Black people, brown people, indigenous people, poor white people. The corporations, they don't care the only color they care about is green. And they've certainly been capitalizing on the black people basically since the end of slavery. If you watch that great documentary by Ava DuVernay, they basically, when they freed slaves, they just imprisoned them to keep the labor.
Yeah, they changed the 13th Amendment is for prisons. Those are the only people that can have slaves. You know, after, like I said, after Reconstruction, they sabotaged Reconstruction, and then they started to change those laws.
Right.
Because you had a lot of black people in Congress right after Reconstruction in New Orleans and in a lot of the southern states, and then they didn't like that.
Thank you, Griffin. $5 in the super chat. Will you guys be covering the Senate races as well? Griffin, we're covering everything, baby. Everywhere, everything. But I got to get my back better to do all that.
Please.
Yeah,
please. He's just gonna be crippled, and we won't be able to do nothing because he's doing bad.
You don't want to see my back right now. We will be covering the Senate races, and I should say we've already started interviewing local progressive candidates. If you're a local candidate running for Congress, Senate, PTA, we don't really care what you're running for. If you're progressive, email info@statuscoup.com. That's info@statuscoup.com. Let us know what you stand for. We can't promise to interview everybody, but over the next few weeks and months, we're definitely going to be starting. Most of it will be like via Skype, but when we can interview people in the field, we certainly will.
Are you hot?
A little bit, yeah. Oh, Beacon's Rebellion.
Yeah, Beacon's Rebellion.
Yeah. So I want to read the economic aspect of this manifesto, which I thought is the most twisted, and this shows the brainwashing, and frankly, this is part of manufacturing consent. And the media has not challenged most of these untruths because, frankly, the media, I'm talking CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Associated Press, even the digital sites, they are pro-globalization.
Yeah.
They are pro-NAFTA, TPP. They don't care about, money in politics. If they cared about money in politics, after the 2016 debacle of Hillary Clinton losing to a reality TV star, they might have focused on, wow, people really don't like the corruption in Washington. Yeah. They chose to bring in Russia and other countries' elections since the beginning of time. But the real lesson of 2016, why do you think there's such an anti-establishment desperation, anger, and frustration? Because of the very things that the elite and the corporations and the oligarchy have been able to convince all of these voters and all of these Americans.
Somebody gave us
that
$100.
Somebody else is to blame. Somebody gave us, oh, wow. Thank you, Griffin, $100 in the super chat. Go see a chiropractor.
You all right, Griffin. He
Thank
always
you.
leaving something.
Thank you so much, Griffin.
Sorry.
That's very generous, he or she. So this alleged shooter said, in short, immigration can only be detrimental to the future of America. Continued immigration will make one of the biggest issues of our time, automation, so much worse. Some sources say that in under 2 decades, half of American jobs will be lost to it. Of course, some people will be retrained, but most will not. So it makes no sense to keep on letting millions of illegal or legal immigrants flood into the United States, and to keep the tens of millions that are already here. Invaders who also have close to the highest birth rate of all ethnicities in America. In the near future, America will have to initiate a basic universal income to prevent widespread poverty and civil unrest as people lose their jobs. So let's start with that. I don't know what this person is talking about, because when I walk into Target across the street and you just have self-pay machines, or you now walk into the movies. Yeah. There's no more tellers. You just pay in a machine. Yeah. Or you work, even it's starting to happen at drive-thrus.
Everywhere. McDonald's, if you look at McDonald's right now, they don't have a lot of them, but it's always 1 or 2 that's on the side. If you don't want to wait in line, you can just take your order right there.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think these machines are Mexican. No. I don't think these machines are Muslims. Yeah. I don't think these machines are humans. Mm-hmm. So,
I think he's making 2 different points.
No, he's not. He's talking about automation. Okay. Automation is machines.
Yeah, no.
So, of course...
Read it again.
some sources say that in under 2 decades, half of American jobs will be lost to automation.
Yeah, automation.
Of
but
course, some people will be retrained, but most will not. So it makes no sense to keep on letting millions of illegal or legal immigrants flood into the U.S. And then to keep tens of millions that are already here. Automation has nothing to do with immigration.
No, that's
you know
not what he's saying is this. He's saying that there's not going to be any jobs anyway, so why do you keep on letting people in? Like, in a minute, like, because of automation, there's not going to be any jobs, so why do you continue to let all them in? I think that's what he's saying on there.
Right, but I think you may be right. The way I'm interpreting it is he thinks somehow automation has to do with immigration.
Nah, I don't think. I don't.
Okay, well, even to your point, if he's saying automation is taking over anywhere, so we're already going to lose our jobs, you're making it much worse.
Yeah.
But it's immigration. Isn't the thing to attack?
Yeah. The
Automation?
of course.
Because
yeah.
what is threatening people's jobs more,
Yeah.
immigrants or
Automation.
robots?
It's
'Cause
automation.
do you
Yeah.
know what the number one industry in America is? Truck drivers.
Oh, you were telling me about that.
The number one
they're
industry in
starting-
America is truck drivers. I have spoken with experts who say there will be no more human truck drivers probably in 3 to 5 years. That is the threat. And this, frankly, some of you are part of the Andrew Yang gang. I am not. Because I don't believe in a defeatist attitude that, well, there's nothing we could do. Automation is inevitable. We got to just, deal with it. And here's $1,000 a month. I think $1,000 a month would be very helpful to most people. But if there are no jobs, $12,000 extra a year, that you can't live off $12,000 if you can't get a job.
Dog, and automation, think about the idea of automation.
Can I just say something? Automation, they could call it automation. What automation is corporate greed. That is what automation is. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's what I'm saying. You took the words right out of my mouth. Go ahead.
It's not inevitable, okay? So in the 1950s and 60s, for some of you folks who might be older now and grew up, there was a zeitgeist in America. There was a culture. There was a social contract and dynamic that, CEOs kind of made like 10, 15% more than their workers. CEOs kind of cared if their workers could live. CEOs kind of cared about the air their workers were breathing, the water their workers were drinking. CEOs might have a problem if their workers had to work another job after working 8 hours. Actually, it was a source of pride for CEOs. A CEO, it was competition among CEOs. How many jobs I've created, not how much I'm doing without having to pay anyone, or how few people I've employed, or how many people I'm cutting, and what my quarterly dividend was, and all this. I think a lot of that changed, frankly, in the 1980s with this greed is good mentality of Wall Street. Yes, it was a movie, but it was an idea.
Yuppies.
Yes, young yuppies. So the point is, today, and this is where I think Andrew Yang gets it worse. No. Automation, yes, some things would be automated, but automation is a choice that companies have because there's no regulation of business in this country. That's why I call it the United Corporations of America, because it's not a country. We are a large-scale corporation governed. We are basically a bunch of workers, 330 million, governed under a giant corporation. You can, and somebody might say, well, this is communist, Jordan, or this is socialist, or this is too big brother. No, you can have laws. You can have basic regulations of how many people a state or a sector, when you read the jobs reports, you have the retail sector, you have the manufacturing sector, you have the real estate sector, whatever it is. You can have regulations and laws.
Yes.
How many people need to be employed? This is what Bernie Sanders and others are talking about with a universal jobs guarantee. So automation is not inevitable. And some of you might say that's naive. It's inevitable if we keep allowing corporations to buy our politicians. I'm not at the Young Turks anymore, but one thing they got right in the beginning was money is the root of all evil. And no story that we cover doesn't have under it, at its root, money and the toxicity of money in politics. So automation is not inevitable. And that's why I don't agree with Andrew Yang. Yeah. I also don't agree with him for other reasons, because I think he's trying to rob Peter to pay Paul. So he's giving you $1,000 a month. but he also wants to take people off what he calls entitlements, like Social Security, Medicare, these things, and shift everyone over to UBI. But those aren't actual entitlements. We pay into them for all our lives.
Yeah.
You wanted to say something?
I was just gonna say, not to be confused. Like, money isn't evil, but the root of evil is always money. If you go back, you always see people do messed up stuff because they want to get more money. But I don't think it's, when you say people, I'm surprised that people would think that's like a communistic like approach, like regulations. No, like we have regulations with everything. It seemed only right to regulate things. I think what happens now in the technology boom, what happens is technology happens and we figure it out 10 years later. Laws come 10 years later and it's like too late. You know what I mean? Like we have to start making laws because in 10 years, like people are going to revolt. No one's going, you're not going to have 50% of the country not having a job and be insecure, don't know how they're going to feed their family and just lay over. That's not going to happen. So in order for you to prevent some type of revolt, some type of revolution, because it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. I'm telling you. You know what I mean? We had a revolution, a racial revolution in the 60s, but that was only one side. That was black people trying to do it, and you had some of the white South trying to resist, but that was us. When you have an entire country, who they're going after, because once the revolution happened, they're going to realize who's doing it, who's involved, who made this happen. You know what I mean? I don't think it's anything wrong with having type of regulations where we know technology's happening. They can do this because they're greedy. They just want money. So the less people they have to pay, the more money they're going to make. That's all they're worried about, and we know that. So let's put regulations where you have to have this amount. There's nothing wrong with that. That's protecting its people. You know, how do you have a country and you don't protect its people? That's what laws are for. That's why they try to regulate being able to throw waste in the water. You know what I'm saying? Try to regulate fracking. That's why people want to do that. Like, these things are for our benefit. You don't want to have to turn on your water and be able to light it, and you can't drink it, and you got to fill up a bucket every 3 or 4 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing like that's not a communist like thing. That's like a regular.
Oh, of course. I'm referencing what Liz Cheney, Liz Cheney calls Commie Bernie, because these are all the people that work for the corporation saying this. It's completely reverse psychology, these Republicans, and frankly, there's a lot of Democrats who talk that way too. Thank you, OTR Trucker. $5.
Another $5?
Capitalists, we're going to replace you with robots. Socialists, true, but each of us will own the robot that replaces us, so you will still pay us. It's a good point. So the point is, I mean, we already went into why he's brainwashed into thinking like Mexicans and brown people and these people are like the source of the issues in America.
That's just that's the cup of tea, right? That's right. Racism. That's America. That's American is apple pie. Racism.
But it is not. Automation is not inevitable, and as Bernie part of the reason Bernie Sanders has caught on over the last few years, and not only Bernie Sanders, but people like Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, Congressman Ro Khanna, many, many other progressives, not just their policies. They're talking about dignity. They're talking about we need to bring back dignity to America. We need to remove this system that is basically a country based on social Darwinism, survival of the fittest, and we're in an economic Hunger Games. We've been in an economic Hunger Games since the 1980s, really. That is why progressive politics, and you go down the issues, why do you think Medicare for All is polling in a majority among Republicans? Why do you think free public college is a majority of support among Republicans? And obviously, more support among Democrats and independents. Go down the list, Green New Deal, fight for $15 minimum wage, all these things. They are supported because the people supporting it are struggling themselves. There's different degrees of struggle. There's the person who doesn't know if they're going to be able to keep the roof over their head in the next 30 days when their rent bill comes. And there's people that just have a little bit of debt. But everybody's struggle is different, but the pressures and the anger and the desperation can be very similar. So this is the economic programming. And of course, what Rush Limbaugh and Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, Ted Cruz, Louis Gohmert, some Democrats, they're so good at doing this, is making you think there's a non-corporate reason. And this alleged shooter, who's a psychopath, is contradicting them all over the place, because on one end, he's right to point out the corporations, but at the other end, he kind of like separates the two onto two different islands. You have the corporations, bad, but it's really the Mexicans and the Muslims. You know what? Let's just use journalism as an example, right? So Status Quo started a year ago, right? Jen, who's in the super chat, is the co-founder. Ty came on with us pretty much like a month after that. We're actually doing it a radically different way than most people. Most outlets, from the New York Times to the Washington Post to CNN to MSNBC, they work on an advertising model. Meaning, I have to get, if I'm the New York Times or I'm the Washington Post, or I need to get a certain amount of traffic to my website to meet my corporate advertisers' demands, or what I promised my corporate advertisers.
Shareholders.
I used to work at a website that they were literally buying traffic to meet advertising quotas, because you tell your advertiser, we're projecting we're going to meet X for this month, and that's what the advertiser pays you based on. So if you know the media a little bit, a lot of people have been laid off in the media and journalism over the last 2 years because Facebook and Google, two corporations that own our government, Facebook and Google are allowed to do whatever the hell they want, and Facebook and Google have now hijacked about 85 to 90% of the advertising revenue from the actual news outlets creating the journalism. All you got to do is Google Facebook and Google's duopoly on advertising.
Brought to you by Bill Clinton.
Why I bring that up is because it's not just the traditional things like manufacturing that the corporations have hijacked, or retail, or weapons, or name your industry. It's every industry, because corporations are not regulated in this country. Perfect example, the Wall Street crash of 2008. We have governmental regulators that are supposed to regulate industries like Wall Street, like insurance, whatever. The regulators are asleep because the corporations have bought the government, the regulatory battles, and all that. Yeah. So it's not like that. This is partly why I don't want to make this political, that to me, Elizabeth Warren's plans are not enough, because just saying we're going to regulate things more doesn't change the structural rot of the system. You could have plans to regulate things more, but until you get the money out of the politics, the regulations are just going to be, the regulatory bodies will be there, but without power, because the corporations will still buy off the government. Elizabeth Warren cannot change that all on her own. That's why Bernie Sanders says, I cannot change that all on my own as president. That's why we need a revolution, which scares a lot of people, but that's the truth. So,
and the revolution is two different things in two different ways. You can have a political revolution where we get gutted. It doesn't have to. It's not always like violence. You know what I mean? But it can end up being that if you don't do what needs to be done before. You know, it's like a powder keg, man. If you don't release that pressure, it's gonna blow.
Right. Donald Smead, $10 in the super chat. Thank you. UBI is a way of paying people for the value their data is generating. We also need a say in how our data is used. Also, why is it that ownership of automated systems is so concentrated? Because the corporations have bought your government, yes. Donald. That's why. But why I brought up the way Status Quo is doing it is not to like promote us, but I'm making a point. We have no advertisers. Like, there's advertisers before our YouTube videos, but we don't control that. That's just automated by YouTube's algorithm. We don't have any advertisers. If we had advertisers, they would only be advertisers that align with our values. Ben and Jerry's, I'd love. If you're listening, Ben or Jerry. Patagonia, which is a great company. We could get to that. But we are growing exclusively, not exclusively, but almost exclusively, just on a simple proposition. Are you willing to, every month, pay $5 to $10 a month to become a Status Quo member? The reason we're doing it that way, corporations can't touch that. Yeah. Corporations have no say in our journalism. Plutocrats have no say in our journalism, because if we are funded by actual viewers and people, we answer to actual viewers and people. If we are funded by actual viewers and people, it's called liberation. We could go wherever the hell we want.
Yeah.
We could cover whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
I don't have an investor in my ear saying, like, you got to cool it with, you're crapping on Kamala Harris or this person. There is a basic conflict when your politicians that are supposed to represent you are taking money from corporations. There's a basic conflict when politicians that are supposed to represent you are taking money from foreign, they're not supposed to, but back doors from foreign countries.
Doug, and that's like surface, right? That's surface. There's a whole lot of conflicts of interest that you got to dig to find. That's surface. That's number one. That's very elementary conflict of interest, right? A person that represents the people should not be taking money from someone that's a corporation. That's why I don't understand why people always think that this country needs to be ran like a corporation. Corporations' intent is their bottom line is profit, making money. They're not worried about their employees. They're not worried about, they'll fire employees to make money. They got to make money. You know what I'm saying? It's all about, they'll do whatever they have to do to make a profit. A government supposed to be making sure that their people are well, making sure that their people are prospering. Those are two different theories, two different ways of things. You don't run a country like a business. You just don't. Because if you do, there's going to be a whole lot of people that's going to be fired, which I mean homeless. There's going to be a whole lot of people that's going to be demoted, which I mean having to work 2 or 3 jobs. Like this is, if you're trying to look at a country as a business, this is what happens. You know what I'm saying?
So I want to read more of the manifesto. Because I think it's important. Obviously, this man is a psychopath. But psychopathy, you're not born as a psychopath. You become one. It's, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't want to get into how this happens. But you're not born that way. A lot of this thinking that makes you such a psychopath comes from what you internalize. So,
no regulation. And it can happen to anyone.
So he says, joblessness in itself is a source of civil unrest. The less dependence on a government welfare system, the better. The lower the unemployment rate, the better. Achieving ambitious social projects like universal healthcare and UBI would become far more likely to succeed if tens of millions of dependents are removed. Even though new migrants do the dirty work, their kids typically don't. They want to live the American dream, which is why they get college degrees and fill higher-paying skilled positions. This is why corporations lobby for even more illegal immigration, even after decades of its happening. They need to keep replenishing the low-skilled labor pool. I'm going to stop there to make a point.
That last part on the first paragraph, dependents needing to be removed.
He's talking about the...
No, I know what he's talking about. Like, that's crazy.
So... let's argue for a second that alleged shooter Patrick Crusius is right. Let's say we got rid of the 12 million DACA recipients. Out. You're out of the country. Let's say if Trump gets his way, we get rid of several million more immigrants, and we're just left with the baseline of native, American citizens, right? And by the way, American citizens, we're all immigrants anyway.
Yeah.
So does this man or the people who think like him think that corporations are suddenly going to be like, all right, now there's less people. Let me pay you $15 an hour. Oh, now there's less people. You know what? I don't think you should have a deductible in health insurance. Or you know what? I really think healthcare should be a human right. We've gotten rid of all the immigrants. We've gotten rid of all the Mexicans, the Muslims, the Somalians, the Libyans, the whatever. I think we should have a government healthcare system. You know what? I think we should have for women like 6-month paid maternity leave. Men, you get 3 months paid paternity leave. You know what? I think that we need to stop picking on unions. We need to strengthen unions. You know what? While we're at it, I think we need to remove frozen foods from school cafeterias, and we need to bring in like gourmet, holistic chefs for our kids.
Take out all preservatives. Think about this. The graph that you showed earlier, that graph is a plain. That's like evidence of them. How far did productivity go up?
Like 200%.
200%. And the money went down. If they were really concerned, because productivity means more money. That's what productivity is. It's more money. You're selling more. You're making more product. You're doing this more. They're working more. They're working harder, the workers. Their money is not going up. So we know if, like you said, them getting rid of anybody ain't changing nothing because it's about money. You know what I'm saying? Just the same thing that happened in Detroit. Or was it Detroit? Yeah, Detroit. The guys that we interviewed that wanted their faces
the auto
blacked
workers.
out, the auto workers. They said, "Oh, we're gonna eliminate this." They was doing that for shareholders. They 15,000 jobs? That was for their shareholders. Period.
So this psychopath is living in a fairy tale if he thinks if you just get rid of the immigrants, the legal, hey, say you even get rid of the legal ones. Just say, let's say, get rid of 30 million illegal, I don't call them illegal, undocumented immigrants. Just get rid of them, and then we'll be back to our core, white, ethno-European country, and then wages will rise. And no, you want to know why? It doesn't matter how many people. It doesn't matter if the country is reduced down to 200 million people. Corporations have been emboldened to squeeze as much out. What do they say? Squeeze as much juice out of the orange as possible. We are the orange, and they are squeezing the goddamn life out of us. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you bring this country down to the population of Canada, which I think is under 100 million people. Corporations are always going to give you the same old talking points. Well, if we raise the minimum wage, it's going to hurt the job creators, or they'll have to lay people off. Oh, if we do a universal health care system, people will have to wait online for 3 months before getting stitches. Well, it's all the same scare tactics. It's all the same corporate brainwashing. Mm-hmm. It's not about immigrants. And by the way, the immigrant jobs, if we're keeping it real, I hope no one's offended, a lot of the jobs immigrants do are the ones Americans don't want to do. Do they think the Mexicans coming in here are like moving up to be CEO at like Goldman Sachs? I don't mean this in an offensive way. I mean, there's barely American women who have high-level executive jobs compared to American men. Yeah. The immigrants are quote taking your jobs because the corporations have hijacked the country. If there was actual regulation on corporations, if corporations through PACs and super PACs and dark money couldn't basically flood the zone. And by the way, that's not just the Republican Party. Do you know how much money Joe Biden is taking from these very corporations right now? Kamala for the People Harris, Pete, America's new mayor, Buttigieg, they're all flooding Wall Street fundraisers. Ty and I, now that you're here, might ambush some of them.
Yeah. I think...
And remember, we're now at 870 people watching. Great audience. Thanks for watching. We have 640 of you have pressed that thumbs up button. So, again, sorry to repeat. If you haven't pressed the thumbs up button, please do so. It's right under the video. The more people that like the live stream, we could get this number all the way up to 1,000. YouTube's algorithm works that the more likes you have, the more viewers you could get.
Yeah. I don't know if y'all can tell I'm a little subdued because I got a lesson before I started.
Well,
from Jordan.
Excuse me, there have been viewers that have complained that we cut each other off. So I said, let's not do that.
That's how we get. That's how we get into the meat of stuff. But this is what I was going to say. There's one thing that I can understand, and I only started to understand this when we started traveling. And this is probably a real thing, and I think this is probably the reason why they can be easily manipulated and lied to. Is that, and it surprised me as well, is that when you do go to the Midwest and you do go to these cities that don't have a lot of Mexicans, the white people are doing those jobs. You do see the white people more in the line. They have their lawn businesses. They work in the janitorial. It was a shock to me because I'm raised in Compton, so I've never seen that before. Everyone that I know that works when you're in California or something, they're all like Hispanics. They're all like they're all you can tell whether these Hispanics are like Middle Eastern or something, but they all are immigrants. And when you get to the Midwest, you do see it is a shift, which surprised me. I'm like, oh, now I can see how they can believe it. They can believe it now, even though it's a lie. It's easy to manipulate that because it really, like, if you go there, that those are the jobs that they're working. Like, it surprised me. Like, I saw the guy, white guy, he had a truck, and he had people. I think he had like three crews. It was like 4 black people that worked with him, but you can tell that he was the guy that ran it. So I'm like, oh, when we was at the airport in the bathroom, it was the white guy that was cleaning up. When we, at the hotel, the same. It was a white guy that was doing the maintenance and stuff work, and I was like, oh, it made me realize how that, because before I left LA, before I started traveling, I'm in my own bubble as well. You know what I mean? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Y'all ain't gonna even do that type of job. But when you go there, you do kind of see, oh, those jobs are being occupied by someone. So I can see how they can be manipulated and lied to and believe that, you know?
Right. But the very thing you're talking about, although true, and it is true, has nothing to do
Oh, no,
with
I'm
this.
just, no, it doesn't. You're
Has
right.
nothing to do with that.
Yeah. But I guess what I'm talking about is just a manipulation. It's
Yes.
all a lie, but that's what it's been. That's what we're talking about. The elite being able to point and say it's them when it's them. Like, that's the whole thing. I'm just saying I can understand, because before I couldn't wrap my head. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, y'all wouldn't even work those jobs. I would, you know what I'm saying?
And it's also one of the oldest tricks in the playbook. It's called divide and conquer.
Mm-hmm.
They are trying to divide so they can conquer.
Yeah.
And I'm going to read just a little bit more of this manifesto, because there's 2 other things we need to get to with these shootings. One is the insane Republican hypocrisy about protecting life. That's number 2. And of course,
life only matters until you come out the womb. Then we don't care.
right.
Shoot everybody.
Of
Kill
course,
them.
and of course the guns. So he says, even though new migrants do the dirty work, their kids typically don't. They want to live the American dream, which is why they get college degrees and fill higher paying skilled positions. This is why corporations lobby for even more illegal immigration. Even after decades of it happening, they need to keep replenishing this low-skilled labor pool. Even as migrant children flood skilled jobs, corporations make this worse by lobbying for even more work visas to be issued for skilled foreign workers to come here. Recently, the Senate, under a Republican administration, has greatly increased the number of foreign workers that will take American jobs. Remember that both Democrats and Republicans support immigration and work visas. Corporations need to keep replenishing the labor pool for both skilled and unskilled jobs to keep wages down. So automation is a good thing, as it will eliminate the need for new migrants to fill unskilled jobs. I think that's what you were talking about before. Jobs that Americans can't survive on anyway. Automation can and would replace millions of low-skilled jobs if immigrants were deported. This source of competition for skilled labor from immigrants and visa holders around the world has made a very difficult situation even worse for natives as they compete in the skilled job market.
What natives, though?
I have no idea what he's talking about.
I just want to know, what natives
Whites.
is he talking about?
Whites.
Yeah.
Whites.
Look, how arrogant. You're the native of this country? That's crazy.
So it used to be that a high school degree was worth something. Now a bachelor's degree is what's recommended to be competitive in the job market. The cost of college degrees has exploded as their value has plummeted. So what this psychopath, and I'm going to keep calling him that because obviously he's a psychopath, what he's not understanding, it's not, you could deport every immigrant in this country. Your wages are not going to go up as a result. Even if more people, you're saying, oh, the Mexicans or the brown people are taking your jobs. Okay, even if you get rid of them, and let's say you get those jobs, you're still not going to get a livable wage. You're still going to get crappy health insurance if you're lucky enough to get health insurance. You go on a jobs board right now. I looked just for hell once TYT fired me. I mean, it looks like 40 to 50% of the jobs are freelance.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to pay health insurance.
Exactly.
Which is part of why
I was on at the Young Turks for almost a year. They told me it was only going to be a month, almost a year, and I didn't have health insurance at all. And they just kept extending it.
Who was it?
Kept extending it.
Who was it that got you hired there?
Jordan did.
And then
Jordan.
and
Jordan,
then they fired both of us. Yeah.
Well, they didn't fire me.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah, I didn't get fired. I got laid off with like 20 other people, so don't put me in your box.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. That's what they're doing. You know what I mean? That's what they're getting. Just by the way, I'm not an immigrant. I was brought here unwillfully, and I'm the descendant of slaves. So.
And you don't like when I say African American. You should explain why.
Why do I need to explain why? Oh, so people
Because
can think.
No, you're making a valid point.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing with like Ilhan
Oh,
Omar. and-
I see
yeah.
what you said. No, because I think first off, I don't appreciate the fact that since our existence in this country, we've been given 7 different names, and every time they change our name, then we just jump on it, and that's who we are. Now, first we were niggers, then we were Negroes, then we were colored, then we were Afro. They named us after our hair. We were Afro Americans, and then we were black, and now we African Americans. I don't appreciate that because we just jump on anything that the white consensus say that is good. And another thing, I think you lose value in the dash, in that hyphen right at the African, that hyphen right there. You know what I'm saying? Because it means like you're a subculture of America. You don't see where they have on applications and things like that. It doesn't say like it's like, oh, you're the subculture of us. We're giving you that. You're not American. You're African American. You're over there. Your little brother. Like, nah, I can't roll with that because I'm as American as anybody. Period. And I think when you have that label and you continue to like perpetuate the idea of you being like lower than an average American. You're not like all the way American. You're African American. You know what I'm saying? So I don't like that personally. So I don't like when he said, I just like to be called, I'm black.
Well,
That's
I
how was
started
raised.
saying black people.
Yeah, I know.
But some people get offended when you don't say African American.
Hey, you and me, so we're going to stick with black.
And by the way, we got 900 people watching now, so keep it going. As I told you, the more people that press that like button, the audience size goes up. We got 900 people watching, 772 have liked. We need about 140 of you to press that like button. It's right under the video. Press the thumbs up button. So what I think is, I missed some super chats too, so let me read them. Dabby J, $5. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8.
I'm going to check that out.
Donald Smead, $5. Over my career as an RN, I've noticed that the more we pay for healthcare in this country, the less PTs receive. It is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And somebody just gave me advice. Quee McKinley, $10 in the super chat. Jordan, never heard about someone who went to the chiropractor. You hear about someone who goes to the chiropractor. Yoga. Look up Arthur's Transformation or Vance's 365. It creates disc space. I will, because I do need disc space.
She funny. She said, no,
Well,
you got to be consistent. You got to go all the time.
Key McKinley, and for those of you watching, I hope my mother isn't watching because she'd yell at me. I'm somebody that you would call stupid.
No, really.
So in Miami, about 6 weeks after I had back surgery, we were covering a march.
Yeah.
And my back was feeling okay then, so I didn't run, but I kind of jogged
No,
to
you
get
were
up,
trying to keep up with
the
protests.
to get to the front of the march. And then when I got out of the car, my back locked up because of that. Then in Detroit a few days ago, the way the thing was situated, Danny Glover was leaving, and I was trying to get up to him to ask him a question, and there was a wall.
And he jumped over the wall. Like it was, I was like, what is he doing? You know what I'm saying? You don't jump over the wall in front of black people.
Oh, that's true. But you don't jump off a wall
When your back is like,
after your second back surgery in a year. So no pity for me, but I've been having trouble walking because I have a sharp pain now. I am doing post-surgery physical therapy. It is helping me. The problem is, when it's helping me, I do stupid things like jump over a wall. So I need to stop jumping over a wall and just be a normal person. So, what? So, I want to, I think it's pertinent to the discussion.
I don't know. Enslaved. Who was that? Who was that just said that? Big Trouble? Is that?
Tumblebug.
Tumblebug. I don't know. Enslaved almost mean that we were enslaved for a period. Slaves kind of mean that it's still going on because of the 13th Amendment. Look how many people we got in prison. You know what I'm saying? If I get caught up because of my record, if I get caught up again, you know what's going to happen? They're going to bring up my record. They're going to bring up my felonies, and I may get struck out because that's what they'll do. Even though it's been way over 7 years. It's almost been 20 years since I even committed a crime, but that's what they'll do to try to give me some football numbers. Strike me out.
And I want to finish this Psychopath's manifesto. The American lifestyle affords our citizens an incredible quality of life. However, our lifestyle is destroying the environment of our country. I don't know what the hell this man is talking about, that the American lifestyle affords our citizens an incredible quality of life. Could you tell me in the super chat if you have an incredible quality of life as an American citizen? I'd like to know. I mean, I'm fortunate. I live in a Manhattan apartment. I got a good family. I grew up middle class. I don't think that's the norm anymore.
Salam, I did read The People's History. It's a great book. Yeah.
Sydney, if you try to fly over walls, you need your status quo cape. I'd love a status quo cape. Do you have a?
You had a cape on that picture,
right? Do you in the live chat? Do you all have an incredible quality of life that this killer is talking about as an American citizen? Because I don't know what he's talking about.
It's a fantasy.
However, our lifestyle is destroying the environment of our country. No, the Republican Party, with the help of the Democratic Party.
No, that's true. He's talking about our footprint. Our carbon footprint is destroying this. He said, oh, the environment of our country. I thought he meant like the environment.
But the corporations are the ones doing it.
Okay, yeah.
The decimation of the environment is creating a massive burden for future generations.
Oh, yeah.
Corporations are heading the destruction of our environment by shamelessly over-harvesting resources. This has been a problem for decades. For example, this phenomenon is brilliantly portrayed in the decades-old classic The Lorax. Watersheds around the country, especially in agricultural areas, are being depleted. Fresh water is being polluted from farming and oil drilling operations. Consumer culture is creating thousands of tons of unnecessary plastic waste and electronic waste, and recycling to help slow this down is almost non-existent. I could go on, but it's the same exact theme we've been talking about.
No,
Does this psychopath think that all of that is happening because Mexicans have bought the government? Or brown people have bought the government? The fossil fuel companies are the ones doing that.
I think
the
the
waste management companies are doing that. It's not the immigrants. He started this manifesto by talking about a Hispanic invasion of Texas. Does he think Texas is the number one fossil fuel oil producer in the United States? North Dakota is number 2. Texas's campaigns. They're paying for all the politicians in Texas's political campaigns. They're paying for all the Republican parties in Congress' political campaigns. They're paying for several Democrats' political campaigns. So he did this horrific thing based on a basic brainwashing and misunderstanding of what the sources behind the economic, I call it the controlled demolition of the middle class in this country. I leave black people out because they were never actually in the middle class.
And even when you refer to the middle class, they don't refer to black people. That's
right.
That's a euphemism. But look, the thing that scares me the most, that worries me the most, and I understand what you're saying by that's how he started it off. But he goes off into something else, and he starts to tell a truth about something. This is the thing that worries me, is that he's mixing some truth with like hella lies, and it gets convoluted, and it's like the Bible. Like you have a little truth, and then they put all those lies around it, and then people believe it as true, and people react to this. That's what's scary. That's the thing that's scary about this. You know what I mean? Because there's some rational things in here. You know what I mean? I mean, to be completely honest, and that worries me, dog. It really does.
So I want to, before we move on to the guns and the Republican hypocrisy, I want to play an interview.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate you, pimp.
I want to play an interview that you're not going to see anywhere else, that Marcus, one of our reporters, Marcus, did, that I actually think exemplifies what's actually going on in this country. Marcus was in New Hampshire recently. Instead of doing, let me interview pundits like everybody else, let me interview, all these out-of-touch people. You know what Marcus did? He sat on a bench with a homeless person and interviewed a homeless person. Talk to this homeless person who's a homeless worker. He's a worker who's homeless, which you've met in Los Angeles. I've met in Portland. I've met in San Francisco.
Just like us.
I've met in Seattle. This is what the very sources we're talking about, the corporations that have hijacked, that have bought, that have kidnapped your representatives. This is what they're doing. And this is, by the way, I haven't been pushing it because this is a somber day. This is what Status Quo is about. It's interviewing real people, average people, working people, homeless people, black people, brown people, indigenous people, not pundits. That's why Ty and I, although it makes it harder to cover the debate, that's why we're just as happy outside the building because we're not getting media credentials. Yeah. MSNBC denied us for credentials. CNN denied us basically for credentials. No, CNN gave us credentials to stand in a parking lot.
Go over there.
Which we're going to get to in a little bit. CNN. This is what we're about. So
I would say also we got a good compliment from somebody that I know that works for Brave New Films, just like what we were doing, and I think it was even better than going into the debates, is that she said that we were filling a void. She's a producer at Brave New Films, and she said that we were filling a void because we are talking to the people that don't have the voice. You can have CNN and MSNBC talk about how Joe Biden has all the support in Michigan. We go to Joe Biden's thing. There's really no one there. You go to Bernie Sanders' watch party. It's a lot of people there, and they're talking, and they're enthusiastic, and they're on the ground. You know what I mean? And if you don't see that, you would just believe what they're saying. The guy that you met that was at Biden's, the black guy, he believed just what he was saying. And then until we start pointing it out, all of a sudden, before we left him, he was a status quo member.
So I want to play this interview that Marcus did because I think it is very, very representative of everything we're talking about. Here we go.
Marcus Ely here for Status Coup with Charles McPherson. We're in downtown Nashville, basically at the City Hall building. So can you talk to me a little bit about what you're interested in, what you're looking for coming up here in 2020?
What I'm looking for is for all these homeless people to get more help, which they're not getting here. It's very hard in Nashville to get any kind of help, which is politically wrong. Especially being a United States citizen, I think everybody should be able to get help that they need.
Definitely. So what type of initiatives would you be looking for the candidates to stand up and say as far as standing up for homeless folks?
Well, I think the candidates should stand up for us. 'Cause I'm homeless myself. I do work, but I'm still homeless. I believe that they should be out there trying to help these people not be homeless. Because people are out here freezing and dying and ODing and on drugs. And I think there should be more initiatives for people to get help out here.
Definitely. There are different plans out there. Have you looked into them? Is it hard for you to even get? Can you talk a little bit about how you get your information politically and whatnot?
Well, according to everybody out there, I'm a homeless advocate. I help the homeless. I show them where to go and how to get their help. But it's very hard to get the help that they need. It's like nobody really cares about these poor people. You know, they're hungry, they're starving, they're ODing, they're dying, and I don't like that.
Yeah. So, can you talk a little bit about some specifics? You ain't got to give names or anything, but just some of the stories you've heard from or people you know and whatnot. You don't have to give away any names or anything.
Well, I've had 3 friends die this week from drug overdoses because when they
opioids,
heroin, and I don't do drugs myself. I drink beer and I smoke cigarettes. That's it. That's all I do. I don't do drugs anymore. But I have. But these poor people want to get off this stuff and they can't get the help to do it. And I want them to have help. I speak for the homeless all the time. I've been doing this for a long. I've been outside for 40 years. Okay, and these people out here want the help, but they can't get the help that they need. I want them to get the help that they need. I'm a loner. I stay by myself. I have a wife out here too that's homeless. She's at welfare right now, trying to get welfare going. But to find help that the people really need is almost impossible out here. It's like Nashville doesn't care about their homeless people. And there's a lot of homeless people out here. I'm going to guess there's at least 600 people out here that are homeless, including children, women and children. I want them to get the help.
Just so you have an idea, you think 600 is a small number, but Nashua is an incredibly small town. It's if you're driving, it's maybe 10 minutes from North Nashua to South Nashua.
Yes, 10 minutes at the most to get through Nashua.
Yeah. So it's an incredibly small town, and to have a town that's so small have 600 homeless folks out here is just.
I'm guessing on the number, but I talked to a lot of people, like at the shelters and stuff like that, and they're telling me that we're at the 600 mark with people that need help. And when you have 3 people that are my friends, good close friends, die from drug overdoses because they can't get the help that they need. I had a friend that went to the safe station, and they told him, sorry, we can't help you, you don't have insurance. And he died.
So that may be another case and instance in which we're saying, hey, folks need Medicare for all, because this is, again, another preventable cause.
It's an epidemic.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, a lot of my friends do drugs. A lot of my friends don't do drugs. I don't do drugs. But I see people dying every day out here. And it makes me sick to my stomach to watch people die when it could be prevented. I have a friend in the hospital right now, a really close friend. He OD'd. He went to get help, and they wouldn't help him because he didn't have insurance. So he OD'd, and now he's in the hospital. He's been in the hospital for 3 days now, but I went and checked on him. He's going to be okay. But he's going to come out and start again. That's how it is. If you're a drug addict, you're a drug addict. You're going to go chasing your drugs. And if you can't get help to put yourself somewhere to try to stay away from this mess, you're just going to keep chasing that mess. You're going to keep chasing that drug until it kills you.
In New Hampshire, small town America in general is where the opioid epidemic has done most of its damage, you know.
New Hampshire. Right in New Hampshire is started out right here, the worst. Worst in Massachusetts, worst in Rhode Island, worst than anywhere. It started right here in Nashua. And all these people are trying to get off it. But if you can't get help for the poor people, then what choice do they have? Because they're just going to keep going out and getting what they need to do to live.
It's really, it's gut-wrenching, and it's basic stuff. It's like we have the materials and we have the ability to help people. We just don't have the political will to help them because there's no financial incentive.
Exactly. The political part is the biggest part because they don't want to spend the money to help these people. But if you don't spend the money to help these people, then where is the help? You don't get the help. All you get is people that are dying every day because they can't get help. If these people can get into programs, okay, because you don't have insurance, so what? You shouldn't need insurance to live. I think you should be able to live without insurance. Politically, the insurance thing is the big thing. If you don't have the insurance, you don't get the help. And
that 30,000 people a year, that's just a staggering number to me. 30,000 people a year die every year of preventable causes because of health insurance. And then if you add the opioid numbers in there, which you should be doing, it's even higher than that.
The 30,000 is what we know of. It's not what we don't know of. There's probably another 20,000 at least over that we don't know about. What we know about is the stats that we know that's on paper. Now what about all these other people that just pass away because they don't get the help? It's politically incorrect. I think every person in this world should be able to live a healthy life. If they want to live a healthy life and get off the drugs, I think they should be able.
Forgot to put that on. You can watch the full video up on YouTube, and Marcus interviewed some other candidates as well, or covered some other candidates in Vegas this past weekend. So I think I missed a couple super chats.
You did to 24. Here you go, right here.
So we got, hold on. Lawrence Johnson, $5. I found the super chat button. Woo! Well, I'm glad,
If
Lawrence.
y'all don't know where the super chat button is, let's tell them.
It's the dollar bill right under.
And on your iPhone, it's literally right here. But you got to sign in. If you don't see
Yeah.
it, that means you haven't signed in or you haven't updated your
Story and
YouTube.
Story and Spice, $2. Thank you very much, Story and Spice. I missed a few others. 24 Ronnie and VA, $24.99. Thanks for the real reporting, not just bloviating. LOL. Thank you,
That's the
Ronnie.
way to compliment them and shit on them at the same time.
That's
I love
right.
it.
That's right. And by the way, this is a serious day, so we're not mentioning this much. But for the 815 people watching, I do want to make clear you can have more of that reporting, both from Marcus in the field, myself, Ty, Jen is going to be out in the field. Right now, we're at 600. It's actually now 670. 670 members. So you can become a member of Status Quo for as low as $5 to $10 a month. This is how we grow. You know, there's a lot of outlets out there asking you to sign up, pay $5 a month or $10 a month or whatever. But really, unfortunately, what you get for your money is a lot of Trump, is a lot of Russia, and a lot of bullshit. But with us, you're getting guerrilla journalism in the field. Yes, some of it is us in our apartment because we can't be traveling 24/7, but this is how we're trying to grow from the ground up. You know, Bernie Sanders talks about a political revolution. We really are trying to create a new type of media that is just exclusively viewer funded. Yes, we want to get some sponsorship deals, preferably with Ben and Jerry's, if you're listening, Ben and Jerry's, and some other progressive outlets. But the core of our business and how we're going to pay Ty and Jen and me and Colin and hire other reporters and afford to travel and interview workers and homeless people and cover water contamination and the pipeline fights and all the
Or
corruption.
have people on the coast,
Right.
where we don't have to force people to move to New York.
And cover the corruption and just the unprecedented amount of stories that aren't being covered by anyone. When we cover Flint, when we go to all these cities like Detroit and other, not just covering the campaign,
Yeah.
it is like a lot of these people look at us almost like as a life, like a life
Yeah,
jacket.
thank you so much,
Because
yeah.
they are screaming out for their local media, for the national media to cover their story, and no one in local. And we go to some national. We go to some places, we're the only national reporters there.
Yeah.
Even the local reporters who are at the press conferences we go to, half the time they're just tweeting or doing selfies in the back. They're not actually looking into anything. They're not investigating what's at the root of the water poisoning or these pipelines or these police brutalities. I wish I had the map open. I mean, we've been all over this country in the last year with very little money and very little in the way of resources. We could be doing a lot more. And if you think about it this way, I want to show you one more time. Think about what you spend $5 on per month. Think about what you spend $10 on per month, $20 on per month, or $179 a year. You know, for some of you, even adding $5 a month to anything is not possible, and that's fine. We get it. Just watch, share, like. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. We don't want to make your situation worse. But if you got, maybe one day you don't go get a $4.99 coffee. Maybe one week you don't go to get a sandwich or a nice salad. I think what we're trying to point out here, I think independent journalism is no longer something we want. I think it's something we need. And I'm saying this as a consumer. If I wasn't with Status Quo, I would pay, in my case, I would pay for Greg Palast, who I think is a great investigative journalist and does some really great work on election fraud and voter suppression and all these things.
You were just paying for the Washington Post.
Yeah. I've donated in the past to Democracy Now! I think they drank the Kool-Aid on Russiagate, but other things, I think they're great. I've donated in the past to The Intercept.
So we good.
Unfortunately, if you want, we're living in the midst of an information war. It's an information war. That's how Donald Trump is winning. That's frankly how the corporate Democrats are
That's a
winning.
good point.
That's how the corporate Democrats are winning. Because whether it's Donald Trump putting this nativism and white supremacy and all this stuff, or it's the MSNBCs of the world and the CNN telling you, like, eat your broccoli, nothing big is possible. Or, oh, it's a booming economy. Everyone's just doing dandy. Consumer confidence is super. Yeah, I think if you watch enough Status Quo clips, you will see that's a bunch of bullshit.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
Malarkey, as Joe Biden Nation says. And if you haven't watched our reporting from the Detroit debate, a lot of the videos are up. We did one hell of a video, I think, from Joe Biden's debate watch party.
Well, let me give a shout out to Donna Fairbanks. She's always retweeting us. I always wanted to just say thank you. You be supporting. Ashley, I see you out there. What's going on?
So again, it's up to you. We are now at 670 members. Our goal for the end of August is 800. So we got a big goal. We're 130 members away from 800.
We got that.
And we could do it, I think. But it starts with you. So there's 700 and something people watching right now. If even a quarter of you became members today, that's a whole lot more funding that we could do. And by the way, Ty and I remember when we were at the Young Turks, we were discussing going on a United Guns of America tour.
Yeah.
Because
we were talking about the documentary that I did, Making a Killing Guns Greeting the NRA. If you guys don't have a chance, you can check out. They have clips on Brave New Films on YouTube. If you go to Brave New Films, you'll see the clips that they have there. If you wanted to get the whole movie, they actually, because it's a 501c3, they'll give it to you free. If you contact them and say you want to have like a screening of Making a Killing Guns Greeting the NRA, they will give you a link to the film for free. And you can check it out, or you can go on YouTube and watch the clips. And we talk about how the gun manufacturers are in the NRA's pocket, and they're the ones that's campaigning. The NRA is campaigning for the gun manufacturers. And even though 80% of NRA members approve of universal background checks, they don't want to do it because if you do that, there's less guns being sold. It has nothing to do with their membership. It has everything to do with the gun manufacturers.
So, one last thing about membership. Let me tell you something.
I thought it was over that. It was doing gun manufacturers.
No, we're about to.
Okay.
The last thing on membership I'll say, and again, this is the only way we could grow and stay independent. But I truly believe, because I've seen it, there's a lot more people in this country that have compassion than you think, even conservatives. There's a lot more people in this country. I use my parents as a great example. My mother, she likes Trump. She's not like an avid Trump supporter, but she thinks, oh, a businessman, that's good. When my mother sees these videos on Flint that we do, when my mother saw these videos at Standing Rock when I was there, when my mother sees this video on this 26-year-old black man that got executed in his apartment by a white cop who just intruded in, we went down to Dallas. We covered the murder of Botham John, a 26-year-old black man just hanging out in his apartment on a Thursday night. This white female officer went to the wrong apartment, she says, and just shot him in the chest, and he died, originally from the Caribbean.
Yeah.
When my mother sees these, says, why is nothing being done about this?
Yeah.
Why isn't CNN covering this?
Yeah.
This is an information war. The corporations are not covering it because they are covering these things up. We are covering it because they're covering it up.
Yeah.
So we hope, and this is the last thing I'll say, we hope, for those of you watching, if you got $5 to $10 a month, I think we will show you we are the people to invest in. We are the crew to invest in. And we want to cover these gun massacres on the ground. Not when all the cameras are there now, but when all the cameras leave. Because that's where the real story is. When all the cameras leave, CNN and MSNBC, they'll be off of this by Tuesday. But that's where the living victims remain. The families, the classmates, the people that were in that Walmart that survived. That's when the faces and the PTSD and the ruined communities, that's where they lie. And that's what we want to go cover. So statusquo.com/join. Go ahead.
To speak on two things. First,
One second. I just don't want to miss this.
I gave it to you.
Thank you, Audio Funk Dialect, 1999 in the Super Chat. If one side says racist and the other side says anti-American, we get nowhere. It's a good point. Jason R. 499 in the super chat. So the fantasy we are sold about automation is it's supposed to lower the cost of goods, yet cost of living has done nothing but go up. Corporate greed.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it.
White fragility, I don't have any patience for. Period. If I can say racism, and if your response is not to try to understand, if you don't understand the history of this country, or you don't want to understand because of whatever, then I won't get nowhere with you. But there's a lot of people that will understand. But anyway, your mother, I bet you she's proud. Because I haven't smoked my hookah, and we haven't really cursed. So if you're watching right now, Mother Sheridan, I know you're proud of us.
It's not just Mother Sheridan that said, Ty, it is unprofessional.
Well, I'm just talking about your mother. I'm just talking about your mother.
Get your mother.
That's all I'm doing.
Get
is
my
talking about
mother
your mother.
out of your mouth.
I'm just talking about your mother, okay? Don't play games. And another, to speak on what Jordan was talking about earlier, going to these places and seeing the effects after a shooting happened. When we were doing the documentary Making Killing Guns Green, the NRA, we had a screening for the shooter, the victims of the Virginia Tech shooting, the victims of the Aurora, Colorado, when the Batman shooting, and the victims of a lady that we interviewed, her boyfriend, that she was about to get married 3 days before she was going to get married, he killed himself. And he had some mental health issues. And so we had a screening for them, like a private screening. And throughout the screening, we had to stop so they can regain themselves and stop. But something that the victims of one of the kids that were shot in Aurora talked about, and he said that this is how my life is today. We were driving here. She's talking about them driving to the studio where they were going to watch the film. We were driving here, and we were listening to the radio. I think they were listening to the radio. Or someone said something. I think he said we were listening to the radio, and someone on the radio said something funny, and me and my wife started laughing. And in an instant, the laughter was interrupted by the thought that my son isn't here anymore. And he said, "That's my life. Anytime I have a good moment, or I laugh, or I'm excited, it's always interrupted by that thought. That my son is gone, that my son is shot, that my son is not here laughing with us." And that type of PTSD lives with them. And it's hard to try to understand, I think a part of trying to navigate that is to be able to talk about it. It really is. It's to be able to talk about it and have that outlet. I mean, how many people, parents from the Newtown kids that been shot have committed suicide already? This is a real thing.
Several in the last few months.
Yeah, and it's a real thing. So I think it's imperative and important that we follow up with these people. I think I don't know if you guys heard me talk about it before, but everyone that I've met, and I've met a lot of victims from Chicago, we interview because they have the worst gun violence. A lot of people try to use Chicago and say, oh, Chicago has the strictest gun laws, but they have the worst violence. Well, Chicago, inside the parameters of Chicago, gun shops are illegal. But what they don't talk about is the gun show loophole, because 80% of the guns that's found in homicides and shootings are guns that were trafficked from Ohio, Wisconsin, from the surrounding states that have these gun shows. And if you're at a gun show and you're a collector, what they call them are collectors. They collect guns. They're able to sell their collection without any license and without reporting who they sold them to. And so they'll sell a lot of guns to a person. Then those guns will be trafficked to Chicago. So they don't really talk about that. And that's why Chicago has the issue that it's had. If we can deal with the gun show loophole, then we'll be able to actually get a stronghold on the things that's going on in Chicago, because they find a lot of those guns. If you find 80% of the guns that are involved in the homicide or a crime are from out of the state, come on now, that's pure evidence. And this is not, you can look at the film Making a Killing, or you can Google it. It's right there. But anyway, we interviewed a lot of these people, and we've been it's hard. And I've had a cousin kill himself. I had a cousin kill himself. I had a friend kill himself. But I haven't really dealt with that in my life, but I did have those two people. And then I've had at least 10 friends get shot just on the street on some gangbanging shit. So, like, being able to, like, the only way I've been able to deal with things for myself, and I don't want to say like how I deal with things is how everybody deal with things, but being able to talk about it and like just get it out of your head to understand why, you know what I'm saying? Because it's no, you can't I can wrap my mind around why we gang bang and why I can get put in a situation that'll get me killed because that's the life I chose. Like I can understand that because I made a decision and that's a part of it. Like I can wrap my mind around why my partner's is dead or why I got shot at or something like that. But it's hard to wrap your mind around how can I drop my kid off at school and never see him again.
Or a movie theater.
What did I do wrong? Like there was nothing, it's hard to rationalize that. And it becomes stressful, and you start to blame yourself. You start to, well, what was, I don't know, man. It's awful what happens, and I think it's good to be able to go there after, because it doesn't stop. It stops for us. This will be done by Tuesday or Wednesday. They're going to be on Trump. They're going to be doing something else. CNN, MSNBC. They're going to be talking about something else. It's going to be done. It's going to be a bullet point and a line of breaking news, which is the same thing from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Period, point blank. And we know this because we're getting used to it. We shouldn't allow ourselves to get used to this type of stuff. These things can be prevented. They don't want it to be prevented. They want to continue to make money. It's all about money. You know what I'm saying? It's all about money, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that you got to be involved in a shooting. And this is the point I wanted to make earlier, is that a lot of the people that we talk to say, you know what? When I saw the shooting in Aurora, I was like, oh, that's bad, but it wouldn't happen to me. That's what they said, it wouldn't happen to me. And then it happened to me. And now they became an activist, which is great, but we shouldn't, it's unfortunate. I'm not saying it's what they did is wrong. It's good that they became activists, but we shouldn't wait till tragedy happens for us to fight for someone else or for us to fight for something that we know is right. You know what I mean? We shouldn't, because imagine if we would have been fighting and maybe Newtown wouldn't happen. Maybe Las Vegas wouldn't have happened. I mean, who knows? I'm just saying, like, it shouldn't have to just happen to us. I shouldn't have to have a gay niece or a gay sister to realize that gay people are people and they should be able to get married. They should have the same rights as everybody else. Why does it have to happen to me for me to have empathy? It shouldn't have to be that way. You know what I'm saying?
Why don't you have your own YouTube channel?
Huh?
So I want to move on to, and I agree with everything you said. I want to move on to the two other things that will take us less time to talk about. I think we really had to get into the actual roots of why the country is so economically desolate. Don't believe the bullshit. There's no booming economy. There's a booming economy for those shareholders who are doing stock buybacks. There's a booming economy for pharmaceutical executives, fossil fuel executives, the weapon manufacturers, the Wall Street bankers, shareholders, the hedge funders, the real estate developers. So,
because tell them that's what they when they say that they're looking at stocks. Regular Americans like us, that's not us.
Yes, the Silicon Valley executives. There's a booming economy for those that have hijacked the means of production. There's a booming economy for those that have hijacked the means of production. The people actually producing are basically treading water, if not sinking, in most cases. So I want to move on. We're going to get to the guns. I want to move on. I cover Democrats very critically. I cover the Democratic Party probably equally, if not more critically, than the Republican Party, because to me, I mean, is it breaking news to tell you the Republicans are corrupt? But in this case, we need to take on the Republicans. I don't want to hear Rick Santorum or any of these frauds pretend to care about those precious human lives in the women's womb. I'm not making a abortion or pro-choice argument. I'm pro-choice. I don't think government or anyone else should even have a say in any of this stuff. It's the woman, her doctor, her family, whatever. Why is it that it's so sacred? A life is so sacred in the womb But when it comes to guns, it's the gun that is more sacred than the living person's life. Why is it that the gun or the Second Amendment and they've bastardized the Second Amendment? The Second Amendment doesn't give you a never-ending right,
Yeah.
or what do they say?
Carte blanche.
An inalienable right to go down with an Uzi to a bar. That's not what the Second Amendment says. The Second Amendment is actually talking about a well-regulated militia, not citizenry. But why is it that they are so worried about the sanctity of unborn life? But for those that are living, theoretically, if Republicans got their way, that abortion was outlawed, you could have, technically, a baby born on a Tuesday. The mother, when they go home from the hospital, the mother, the father, they stop for food or whatever, or they stop at Walmart for some last-minute things, and they get shot up.
Yep.
Well, in that case, they were protecting that baby, and we outlawed abortion in a terrible world where abortion is outlawed. That baby made it out, but they lasted a day because
Our hands are clean.
because they were in the wrong Walmart, or the wrong movie theater, or the wrong grocery store, or whatever. So, the day before, we have to do everything possible to protect. That's the sirens coming for Rick Santorum.
Yeah, and Rick Santorum was talking about soft targets. Walmart in Texas is not a soft target, because it's a mall there. Those are regular people. If I'm not mistaken, Texas is an open carry state. I know for sure it's a concealed carry, but I think it's an open carry state. So there's not a such thing as a small target, as a soft target, maybe at a church. And in Texas, probably not. Because I know when you go to Michigan, they have the little sign say no guns in the church. So maybe in the church, but probably in Texas, not. Probably not.
Concealed carry.
It's a concealed carry. So that means everyone can carry, period. Concealed carry just means you can't carry it in the open. You can conceal carry. Everyone can do that. When they have a gun, you can have a gun on you, period, point blank. It's legal. So there's really no soft targets unless, like I said, you're in a place where it says you can't have guns.
And this is what I was saying to you. I heard on the news, I don't know if it was a 4-month-old or a 4-year-old, but a very young kid died in the El Paso shooting.
Really? See,
Yes.
I saw 2 guys shot but didn't die. I don't know.
Jen, could you check me on that? I believe it was either a 4-month-old or a 4-year-old died in the El Paso shooting.
But I think what you said is right. I feel like we had this conversation before, but like they care about life until you're out the womb.
Right. The point is, I don't want to hear a fucking thing about the sanctity of life, and I don't care what your Bible tells you. You know what? You know who has just as much a right to life as an unborn baby? Those fucking kids in Newtown had a right to life. The Declaration of Independence says the right to pursue happiness. You can't pursue happiness if you're getting your fucking head blown out in a kindergarten classroom, or in a movie theater, or in a grocery store, or a mall, or a Walmart. It's not even hypocrisy. These people are sociopaths.
Yeah.
To have that type of hypocrisy and that type of cognitive dissonance, and absolutely evil. You're right. So we worry so much. We got to make sure you're out of the womb. And by the way, let's not pretend that the abortion rights movement makes a lot of money for a lot of people in this country. It's also a money-making machine. So are we to think that life is precious, an unborn life is precious, but the born, well, that's just the price of living in a free country with a Second Amendment? Which brings me to the gun issue. And we've talked about this too many times. And this person who wrote gun legislation is a waste of time, with all due respect to the people who say gun legislation is a waste of time and the guns,
Is that all he said? Is gun legislation?
Yeah.
Did he say why?
Well, let me tell you something, because I've researched this extensively, and as somebody who, there's nothing to hide. I have depression. I take medication for it. There's a lot of mentally ill people in this world.
Yeah.
A lot of mentally ill people all over the world. Bernie Sanders talks about bringing workers together internationally, because there's workers being screwed in Brazil. There's workers being screwed in Mexico. There's people being screwed all over this country. And by the way, if you believe depression and anxiety and mental illness is an issue with the chemistry in your brain, that just doesn't just stop at America's borders. There's mental health issues everywhere.
Yeah.
And Jen, mother of 2-month-old died. Baby is in the hospital.
Oh, the mother.
4-month-old taken to the hospital. Saw other reports where the 4-month-old died, but the reports, conflicting reports.
That's crazy. That's almost like your example. 2 months.
Yes.
The baby's 2 months.
Yes.
I mean, the mother's dead. Now what's going to happen to that baby?
Right.
Look at that. They don't have a mother. If they get in the foster care system, that ain't good for a kid. This kid's life is messed up unless he got somebody that will love him. You know what I'm saying? But if his mother's gone, even if he has someone that love, if you don't have a mother, you don't have that love, you know how messed up. Part of it taking so long for me to get my life together because my mother left me abandoned. You know what that does to you, like psychologically. What that does to your, like, it makes you so insecure. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't realize that the reason
it's done a hell of a lot to you.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I know you're being funny, but it has. It has. I mean, I'm over it, so I know how to deal with it now. We have a better relationship, but when you don't have a mother, it does a lot. It allows you to like be misogynist, treat women a certain way, and I've done that. You know what I'm saying? Looking for my mother's love and all these women. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't that. It was like I needed my mother. You know what I'm saying? And when we were finally able to patch our relationship up, it took like almost 20 years, man, and we good now. But for 20 years, people have been catching the consequences of my insecurities. You know what I'm saying?
A 25-year-old woman who was shot while apparently shielding her 2-month-old son was among the 20 killed. So going down, shielding your kid, just like,
As she should.
Right.
That's terrible.
But the point is, the Republican Party, bottom line, and I tweeted this yesterday and I truly believe it, they're accomplices to all this carnage. They are accomplices to murder. Because for those of you with this, let me tell you something. There's mentally ill people in New Zealand. There's mentally ill people in a lot of countries. You can't kill in Ohio. The guy killed less than 24 hours ago 9 people in 60 seconds.
60 seconds.
You cannot do that with a knife. You cannot do that with a belt or nunchucks.
Whatever, a pipe. Whatever
So-
they're trying to say that, in another country that don't have guns, they use something else. You can't do that in 60 seconds.
So the point is, yes, there's mental health issues. Sometimes mental health issues is you're born with it, genetically, you have an imbalance in your head, whatever. But there's the root of it, and there's the mechanism where that mental health is carried out. The mechanism is not the brain. The mechanism is the gun. Both of these attacks in less than 24 hours were AK-47 style weapons.
Yeah.
Semi-automatic.
So, just so you guys can understand what this is, because a lot of people trip out. But so a semi-automatic gun is just like a pistol. That just means you got to, every time you want to release a bullet, you have to fire. You have to hit. You have to pull the trigger. Automatic is you pull it and it just shoots out. But the difference between a AK-47 style rifle versus a handgun is the velocity, how fast it goes, and how easy the trigger is. A hair trigger. So you don't have to pull that hard for you just to go like this. And that's why you can kill. And that's why it's similar. It's not an automatic, but it does more damage because of how it's made, how light the trigger is for you to pull it, and how fast and far that it goes. So it's a completely different gun. It's a more powerful gun. But it's because a lot of people try to say, semi-automatics, well, do you want us to get rid of handguns? And they try to twist you up because some people say automatic when they're supposed to be saying semi-automatic, and people try to use that to twist people up. But it's a very powerful gun.
And by the way, again with the Republican hypocrisy, so we got to give the military whatever money they want. Now we're going up to $738 billion in a military budget, which the Democrats are agreeing to, which is a whole nother story. It's totally immoral, totally ridiculous. We were at $715 billion. Now we're going up to $738 billion. Probably in 5 years, we'll be at $1 trillion for the military budget. So The Republicans say whatever the military needs, they get. The military, you can't say anything about the military. You're un-American. Military, we're fuck yeah, America. I have a boner for the military. But if the military, which almost unanimously military say, these weapons do not belong on the streets. These weapons do not belong in citizens' hands. These weapons are meant to kill, not defend yourself, not hunt. They're meant to kill. Well, have a Second Amendment. Well, have a Second Amendment. Seems to me, if the military is, the be-all, end-all, and it's our moral compass, well, shouldn't we listen to the military folks? And by the way, Ty could talk about it a lot better than I can. He knows. It's not just the size of the guns. It's the ammunition these guns are able to hold, the magazine capacity.
Yes.
I think in the El Paso example, he had extra magazines.
Yes.
So I don't want to hear from anyone. And if you think it's just mental health, then you need to get your health checked. Yes, mental health is a real thing. And unfortunately, in society, there's no way to ever eradicate completely a mental health illness. It is being underfunded to the point of absurdity. And part of our mental health crisis in this country is what Ty and I talked about in the beginning of this live stream, the economic desperation. But that's why you see these opioid epidemic.
Like,
what do people
crazy.
turn to when they're
stressed out? They don't want to deal with it.
Poor, impoverished, hungry, stressed, ashamed, whatever. But mental health is not what's killing 20 people at a Walmart. Mental health is not what's killing 9 people at a bar in Ohio and 58 people at a concert in Nevada. Have we forgotten about that?
Yeah.
Less than, I think, a year and a half ago, other than the American...
Almost 2 years ago in October, because we was in...
Other
St.
than
Louis.
the maiming and murder of the Native Americans and black people, that was considered the largest mass shooting in modern American history.
Yeah.
I'm on antidepressants, right? So a couple years ago, I had a really bad bout with depression. I've told the audience I was hospitalized. Saved my life. I'm not ashamed of it. I think we need to stop hiding mental health issues because that's what stigmatizes it in the first place. But you know what? I don't know how to. I'm not skilled at. I've only been to a gun range once. I personally don't like it. But you want to know something? If I could figure it out on the internet, and if I was in such a dark place, I could go do some really terrible things if I wanted to. Or if I was so bleak and twisted in my mind. That's the difference. In other countries, you can't. New Zealand just had a mass shooting, banned assault weapons. You can't do it. So, yes, mental health or psychopathy or sociopaths or whatever is the engine for it, but the guns are the driver.
I think you just made a great point. Because I was thinking about it right now. I'm like, okay.
Jen,
so-
could you write that down and let's patent that? Mental health is the engine, guns are the driver.
The reason I think, because I was thinking, I'm like, okay, so I'm looking at myself, read this. She just gave some money. So I wanted to make that point, like, because I think what she's saying is like true, right here.
Angela, $5 to the super chat. Often these shooters are taking SSRIs. We should study whether this exacerbates violent tendencies. SSRIs help many, but can cause issues in others. It's true.
I think you're absolutely right.
It's
and the
true.
reason
I don't agree, by the way, with Marianne Williamson on antidepressants are, I think in many cases they are prescribed too easily by people who don't have the expertise to prescribe them.
Yeah.
But I also don't.
like
I also
medical doctors instead of
But
psychiatrists.
I also know personally, and research shows it also helps millions of people.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's either or, and frankly, I don't think she has the expertise to even be talking about it. But this is true.
Mm-hmm.
SSRIs can exacerbate if you're in a deranged mood to become violent.
It did with me. And that's why I wanted you to read it, because it did with me. When they had me on Vyvanse at once, they had me on like 70 milligrams. And I was having thoughts that I've never had before. And I recognized it because I'm a grown man. You know what I mean? So I understood that what it was, instead of like a child or something who really think it's them and think that's their thoughts. So I think you're absolutely right. And that's probably why a psychiatrist monitors, take it for a month, whatever, we'll see what's going on, and then they try to figure it out. But to your point, what I thought was like what you just said made sense, is because I'm like, okay, So in certain areas that like don't really have mass shootings, what do they have that would allow them to cope? Opioids, drugs. They do all that. We have an opioid epidemic because they have access to those things, right? But they're stressed out too. They're going through it. They're sitting by themselves. They're having no intervention, and they're just putting negative thoughts on top of negative thoughts on top of negative thoughts, and going into this dark hole. And then they're like, and you see a lot of people overdose. You see a lot of people overdose. All these things happen because that's how they're there. Now you get into a state where you can have a gun. It's easy to get a gun. You can either open carry or conceal carry, like St. Louis is open carry, or you can conceal carry like Texas. Then guess what? Now to deal with these thoughts, and you that's how you act out. Like some people use the drugs to deal with them and end up dying, or some people go and your suicidal thoughts become homicidal thoughts. It shifts because there's no intervention. And then what do you have? You have guns because they're easy to access when you're in the state that you're able to carry. You're able to like open carry. They want it. They legislate for it. It's a part of their culture. And just like I said, in another state where you can get the drugs and they use that, like everybody have a coping mechanism.
Let me tell you something, folks. And you know, I'm human, so I get scared. At the RNC in 2016, you weren't with the Young Turks yet. It was open carry. There was people with Trump hats walking around with Uzis. And my cameraman at the time, who, well, I won't get into him, but, you know, he's pretty aggressive. And he talked about, you know, he just went up to this guy with a Uzi and kind of got in his face. And, like, I'm a rabble-rouser, but I'm also not trying to get killed. Yeah. Like, it's scary the fetishizing of guns.
Yeah.
It's, you know, they say it's as American as apple pie. The gun manufacturing industry, the advertising industry, the sporting industry have fetishized gun to be like, you know, for some people, a gun is like their baby. They sleep with it under their bed.
Have you seen that church thing? Were we watching it together? Where they have a church where they worship the rifle?
Yep.
Like pray to it? Was I watching that with you?
No, but you mentioned it to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But look, though, you know what? To keep it a note, I haven't always been on this side of the fence in my entire life. So I don't get that nervous. I get nervous around white people with guns. I do if I don't have one. But when we were in St. Louis and we were having a protest and a black dude that had the gun, I felt real safe. I was like, okay, the cops aren't going to do it. Like I honestly, personally, I felt safe. You know what I mean?
I didn't feel safe for him.
I think they'll be less likely to intervene if you got that on you and they know you got that on you. That'll make them want to talk more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, Angela, $5 in the super chat. PCP prescribed Zoloft, made me lack empathy and couldn't express emotion. Everyone differs. Our psychiatrist should be able to prescribe these drugs.
Yeah.
Correct.
Mine is the same thing. Lack of empathy. I used to feel like they took my personality and put it to the side. And I was just like a shell of myself. That's how I would try to explain it because I didn't get why. And it was like 70 milligrams. I think it was just too high, first off. And it really did that. And I just felt like a shell of myself. And I would just be there. And sometimes it would be so intense where I have to like just sit like this and try to deal with it. And other times it's just I'm like reading or doing something.
You know what I get pissed off about, unrelated? When Bernie Sanders competes with me for a live stream.
Is he on right now?
Why does Bernie Sanders have to go live every time I'm live? Come on, Bernie. No, I'm kidding. Bernie just went live, so we lost a little bit. The last thing I'll say on the gun issue, because there's one thing I want to end on, which Jen just sent to me, and she's right. You got to realize that these people who just push this mental health issue, they are willfully lying. They know it's not mental health that's causing this.
Yeah, because they don't say that when it's black or...
But it is part of the Republican racket. And, you know, I don't wish this on Rick Santorum, but unfortunately, as in life, usually it takes a tragedy hitting you personally to change your mind.
That's what I said earlier.
I don't think Rick Santorum would be singing this tune. Or Ted Cruz.
Yep.
If, God forbid, it was their kid,
God forbid,
shut up. Shut up. You think they'd be saying Second Amendment? No. Because at the root, and this is how it goes, whether it be gun violence, gentrification, water contamination, police brutality, you name it. when they hear it happens to other people, that's too bad. What time's The Bachelor on tonight? But when it happens to them, ooh.
That's crazy.
So honestly, I can't even debate. I honestly wouldn't even bother debating with somebody who says this is a mental health issue and a gun issue, because you can't debate with people who are willfully
Lying.
full of shit.
Yeah.
It's one thing if they actually think it.
Yeah.
They're lying and they know it.
Because they're getting money from the NRA, which get money from the gun manufacturers. If you watch Making a Killing, Guns, Greed, and the NRA, we point out the money. We find the money. It's on Brave New Films. Like I said, they have clips of actual sections. We do 4 sections. We do one on mass shootings. We do one on domestic violence, guns used in domestic violence, gun trafficking, which we highlight Chicago, suicides and gun, and accidental deaths, where a kid finds a gun and ends up shooting himself or his friend. And so they have clips up there. You'll see where the money is, how much gun manufacturers are giving to candidates, and how much the NRA is getting from gun manufacturers, and how much they're giving to candidates.
And the last thing, and I'm happy Jen sent this to me because I wasn't thinking about it, but I think she's right. We got to realize also, there's always been like chat rooms online for deranged people, right? There's always been like the dark web and the darker web, and there's always a place where sick psychopaths can congregate. And part of that is they are so isolated in society, a lot of these people. Like these shooters at schools are usually students. And a lot of times you find them in the 4chan. Jen, is it 4chan or 4chan?
It's called Making a Killing, Guns, Greed, and the NRA, Maggie.
Making a Killing, Guns, Greed, and the NRA on
Brave New Films.
Brave New Films. So there's always been a place for this kind of white nationalism, white supremacism, people fascinated with gun culture, people who get bullied, whatever. But over the last few years, and I don't want to pretend to be an expert on it, I'm not, but 4chan, 8chan is where the El Paso shooter uploaded his manifesto 19 minutes before he started shooting. A lot of these people that are sick, that are deranged, that are psychopaths, 4chan, are congregating on these. I mean, it's free speech. They could do it on the web. It's another thing, we don't want the internet regulated because it could go too far. But certain things do need to be regulated. Because this is where, and the FBI is supposed to be monitoring these sites and chats, but this is where a lot of these sick white supremacists, white nationalists, people, giving tips on how to make a pipe bomb and, these kinds of things. This is where they're congregating. Yeah. So, I do think economic anxiety is at the root of a lot of these things. I do think racism and white supremacy, misguided as the immigrants that we've talked about, are at the root of this. But at the end of the day, as much as the gun, these people are congregating and kind of giving the foreshadowing of what they're going to do on a lot of these sites. I mean, you go through 4chan, you go through 8chan, it's some of the sickest shit you'll ever read.
4chan and 8chan?
Yeah. So the guy, this is where, this is 8chan.
Oh, that's where he posted.
That's where he posted his manifesto. And it's a chat, it's you could upload things, chat, it's there. Jen says, this is a fantastic way to phrase it from someone in the chat. 4chat is for when Reddit is too soft. 8chat is for when 4chan is too soft. Psh. Yeah. And there's a lot of sickos on Reddit too. Yeah. And what's it going to be when they think 8chan is too soft? Right? Because there's always another level. There's always people who think whoa, those people, they're not pure enough. They're not extreme enough. They're not angry enough. So now we got to make a 12chan. 12chan.
Well, they do it by 4. Yeah, 12.
So, you know what? To me, there is freedom of speech in this country, even hateful speech. But to me, if the government wants to focus on, you could focus on many things, But I think we should be focusing a lot less on, what Russia is doing with fake Facebook pages, and a lot more on this is where domestic terrorists are gathering. 4chan, 8chan, whatever comes next. So to me, we could talk about our holy democracy and Russian trolls, cyber warfare, and they're hijacking our democracy with fake Facebook pages and this kind of stuff. But, do we have a democracy if we all are being butchered in the streets? This isn't going to be the last one. There might be copycat killings after this. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
What's more important, Russian Facebook pages or this kind of hate shit? To me, if you're putting out there on 4chan and 8chan, fantasies of murder and fantasies of like getting rid of the immigrants, this and that, to me, that should be flagged for possible intervention from mental health professionals, or to see. And this is part of the problem with not having a gun registry in this country.
Yeah, of course.
We need to know: are these people have weapons?
That's outlawed, by the way. It was outlawed in the 80s. We cannot have a computerized central place. It's all on paper.
Well, we have
ATF.
a central place for driver's licenses.
Of course. It's crazy. Somebody mentioned earlier, we were talking, and they was like, people go out and they don't expect for this to happen. I was like, I don't know what area you live. I'm paranoid. When I go to the movie, I'm thinking about it. When I go to certain places, it crosses my mind all the time now. So whoever it doesn't cross their mind, maybe they're distracted by something, but I guarantee more than less people, when they go to some place, it crossed their mind a little. At some point, they may forget about it and put it in the back and not allow it to dictate what they do, but it crossed their mind. It crossed my mind. I remember, this is probably what makes sense because it was right after the Aurora. I couldn't watch Batman. I kept watching people go to the bathroom. I couldn't watch the movie because I was so paranoid. I made myself go because I didn't want that to dictate what I did. But I couldn't even watch the movie, and it was I was just very anxious. And every time I go. I just think about it. Like I said, I'll put it in the back of my head too. But I think about it more than I've ever thought about it. I think about it more than I thought about it after the Colorado shooting with the first shooting in '99 or whatever. I didn't think about it then, but it happens so much now. I don't see how you cannot go to a certain place and be like, well, it can happen here. You look around and just be like, I do it almost everywhere I go.
And I think, to me, the bottom line is, don't tell me about threats to our democracy from foreign governments if you don't think it's a major threat to our democracy, that anyone could die at any given time. I don't want to hear, oh, you could die crossing the street. Yeah, accidents happen. This is no longer an accident. Our government is standing by as this stuff happens. Our government is standing by as this stuff happens. And if you ask me, I said this to my girlfriend last night. We had Occupy Wall Street. Where is Occupy Congress?
Real talk.
Where is Occupy Congress?
Real talk.
At a certain point, not at a certain point now, and 10 killings ago, 10 mass shootings ago, at a certain point, if we don't protest, if we don't stay out in the streets, I'm not talking about violence, but I'm saying not those Parkland kids did a great job with that, whatever it was, that National Day of Protest.
Yeah.
But that was one day.
Well, yeah, that was, yeah.
They'll allow you to do a protest.
It has to be Occupy like that, not walking. I mean, I understand, I get it, whatever, walking up to somebody while they're eating. But I think the Wall Street thing is good because that's camping out for days where they have to do something.
Oh, well, I agree with the walking up. I don't give a shit if you interrupt Mitch McConnell's dinner. I'm not saying be violent, but get up in this person's face. If somebody is literally standing by as your family is getting butchered or you don't have health care, I'm going to walk up into him and I'll breathe on him if I have to.
That wasn't what I was thinking about. I was thinking about the other, but I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, make them uncomfortable, whatever, do it. I feel that way because I would do it. I would do it because I would be upset. This Wolfpack says, can all the people's family... Now, this is a good question because I think so, because I know in California you can sue anybody. But it said, can families have an affected class action lawsuit against the NRA?
They can, but
the NRA is so powerful. They do have a lot of money for real.
Right, but unfortunately
you can though.
In our legal system, you can, but it's very hard. It'll
probably get thrown out.
It's very hard to prove the NRA is responsible.
Yeah. It's like suing YouTube.
So when Alex Jones, who's another psychopath, when Alex Jones says Newtown didn't happen, you could sue Alex Jones as Newtown families, and I think they won. And he had to apologize, I think. But NRA, I mean, you could sue the NRA, but it might not necessarily work. Kip Winter, $10 in the super chat. Your mind is responsible for all you do. I agree, but your mind, if your mind gets in a sick place, your mind itself isn't killing people. It's the mechanism to do it, which is the gun. I don't know if that's the point you're trying to make, but I agree your mind is responsible.
Yeah, because like you said, your mind can still go in the same place if you don't have access to a gun. You have a knife. Okay, maybe it's unfortunate that one person died, but one person, and you can, if you see somebody and they're about to stab you, I mean, you can. It's probably scary, but you can have a better chance unless he's,
So as we end, I don't want to do any other stories today. I think this is the story. This coming week, we'll definitely be doing a little debrief and recap of our Detroit debate coverage. We got a lot of videos left to publish that we haven't published yet. We got.
You didn't read this from Jason R. Half-cocked. Like that's part of our language. Like we say half-cocked and that's like a shotgun. Like this is how ingrained guns are that we even use it as slang.
Yeah, and listen, movies aren't responsible, but it's in our culture, guns and James Bond and all this. So
they used to say rap was responsible. Tupac, they tried to take Tupac to court and take off All Eyes on Me album because a kid killed somebody and said I was listening to Tupac. You know what I'm saying? Reverend Butts, who's in New York, took a bulldozer and ran over the Chronic, Snoop albums, all the gangster albums, saying that this is the reason why the violence is. So, if you want to blame hip-hop, why not blame movies?
And John Delaney, although I think you're a scumbag, I do agree with that comment that Status Quo is better than TYT. Thank you.
Who is John Delaney? Why do you think he's a scumbag?
Are you paying attention to politics?
Oh, John. Oh, that's not the real John Delaney. Okay.
No, it's a fake one.
Okay.
So a couple housekeeping notes before we end today. Ty now lives in New York, unfortunately with me for the time being. So if you don't know, if you're a new subscriber, because I think we're not, like Jen, did we?
He paid me in posters and CDs. That's why I got to live with
Jen, I think we passed 50,000 YouTube subscribers like 3 weeks ago. We're knocking on the door now of 60,000. So we're growing very rapidly thanks to you. Appreciate the OGs subscribers and, of course, the new subscribers. We're live every day, Monday through Friday, around 5 o'clock Eastern. I'm trying to nail it down to 5 o'clock Eastern. Now that Ty's here, I might be able to actually start on time because I've usually been doing most of the pre-production myself. So he's going to help me out with that. 5 o'clock Eastern, Monday through Friday. Do not rely on YouTube to notify you when we're live.
Don't, because I still haven't got it.
Yeah, they'll notify you the next calendar year. I just say put it in your phone, like daily reminder, Status Quo, 5 o'clock Eastern. Sundays we're live at noon Eastern. Also, again, as we end, we could only grow as far as you take us. We're now at 671 Status Quo members, so you can become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. This is how we fund our reporting in the field. This is how ultimately we'll be able to hire other reporters, other producers, other everything to actually cover what everyone else is not covering, and that would be the controlled demolition of the middle class, the working class, police brutality, environmental genocide, water contamination, economic violence. I mean, we cover a lot.
Expose the United Corporations of America.
That's right. That was a wise man who came up with that. And finally, for those of you watching, become a member, statusquo.com/join. Also, if you're not on our email list, go to statusquo.com right now. You'll get a little pop-up. Enter your email so we can talk to you through that. I promise you we will not spam you. We will not spam you all week with, asking you for money and all that. A lot of times on our email, we send out our content. Just, again, because YouTube doesn't notify you, so we like to send it out via email sometimes. We'll tell you where we're going next. Sometimes we send out our membership videos for our members to show you, hey, we got new content. Just for our members. Signing up as a Status Quo member is not just to help us. You also get bonus content and exclusive stuff. We posted 2 videos so far from Detroit just for the members. We'll have some other stuff too. So email list and, of course, spread the word. It's very important. Yes, sharing on Twitter, Facebook, all this, but just your friends, your family, whoever. We are really trying to become, like, from the ground up, similar to how you would do political organizing. organized the same way for a media company. So spread the word to your friends. They don't need to be like capital P progressives. There's a lot of people watching that aren't like as progressive as myself, Jen, or Ty, but there's overlap on some of the issues we cover. That
Exactly.
I get a lot of conservatives who be like, Jordan, I don't agree with you on a lot, but I respect that you cover Flint or this or that or the other thing. So spread the word and just keep watching, keep sharing. We're a little over a year into this. Hey, we've been suppressed probably more than most channels. Half the time I get people telling me, oh, I've been unsubscribed from your channel, even though I subscribed, or I never get notified, or this, that, and the other thing. Almost every single one of our videos is now demonetized, and we have to put in for an appeal because
Look, let me tell you how paranoid he is. The other day, he wanted me to edit, and because like
that's a good paranoia.
no, I mean it's a good, but it was like no, this is how paranoid he is. That was paranoia because nothing would have happened, but this is how scared this is how spooked they got us. Because when we got that 90-day suspension, there was nobody to contact. We just kind of left on the island. We couldn't contact anyone, so we was spooked. I'm even spooked. That's why when we did the thing, I turned down the. Remember, they was like, "Oh, there's no volume." I'm like, "Yeah," because I wanted to start talking first.
But a lot of people might not know because we have a lot of new subscribers.
Oh.
YouTube banned us from live streaming for 90 days.
Yeah.
So in March, April, and
It was
May,
March,
we could
yeah.
not live stream. And let me tell you something. If you're trying to grow a media company, that's pretty damn tough.
Yeah. 90 days is a long time.
I had to.
You were so paranoid. You didn't even think that they was gonna give it back to us. You was like,
Yeah.
they're not gonna do it.
Well, I mean, YouTube is like our government. They're bought
Yeah.
by the corporation. So
Yeah.
YouTube is doing pretty much whatever CNN and all these other outlets. I might get further suppressed for saying
Yeah.
this. And by the way, there is a switch and there is a human throttling these channels. It's not just the algorithm.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't even know where we began with that.
Well, because what I was saying is that this is how paranoid you got is that when I was editing something because we were shooting and he had the TV was on behind him and I had it blown out and he looked at it. He just, I don't know. That's how paranoid he was. I'm like, nothing's going to happen. He wanted me to put a block on the thing to cover it with some type of image. I was like, dog, you good. But this is how spooked they have us.
Yeah, because we were covering the debate, Joe Biden's debate watch party. I would actually call it a funeral. If you watch that video, that looked like a funeral rather than a party. Yeah. But, CNN, the debate was playing on TVs in the bar, and they were actually demonetizing certain channels.
Yeah, it was like happening all like everybody.
But they also gave somebody, I think David Pakman got a 90-day ban. I don't know if it still happens. I don't know what he was doing, but basically CNN was fishing to give people copyright strikes. Yeah. And if we get another copyright strike, that's like Rocky or something like. That's not quite the KO, but like that will knock us down.
Well, this is the thing. This is why it's imperative that you guys become status quo members and stuff like that, so we won't have to be totally dependent.
Yes.
On YouTube. Point. Because when you're totally dependent on somebody, they can do whatever and control you and really control you. I mean, that's it. So if you're not dependent on them, then we got everybody coming to our website, then it's easier. But we all know that YouTube is easier. I watch everything on YouTube as well. But you do become dependent and you get paranoid when things like that happen. Because we just wanted to cover the Bernie's town hall.
And, I mean, Ty kind of took the words out of my mouth. But, for example, when we got that 90-day ban on YouTube, I don't know the exact number, but I would say we probably at that point had like 25,000 subscribers, 30,000 subscribers. So we had the idea, let's just go live on our website. Well, easier said than done. Yeah. Technically, we could do it, but it's hard to inform everybody that we're now live on the website because people are in the habit of being on YouTube. Yeah. It's a lot different if you have 1,000 paying members, 1,500 paying members, 2,000 paying members, and on we go. The more you grow, if one day, for whatever reason, they're banning people just because that's what YouTube is doing. They don't want the right wing. They don't want the anti-war people. They're just going to get rid of everybody and basically have MSNBC and CNN. Then if our audience, if our revenue and our funding is based on actual viewers, meaning become a member, $5 to $10 a month, then that's not going to kill us. we'll broadcast somewhere else, and our viewers will come. So that's another important thing. Wolfpack, $1.99. Tupac was killed by COINTELPRO.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. But unfortunately, Tupac was killed by the guy he jumped in the hotel. If you're from Compton, you would know that, but you guys are not. So you think it was Suge, or you think it was conspiracy. No, it was actually some gang banging stuff, and it was some retaliation type stuff. It was the guy he jumped. Just got some get back. That's all.
So we thank you. I think we were live for like 2.5, 3 hours. I got to go ice my back. We will be back at this tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern time. Remember, oh, by the way, I'm not going to say thoughts and prayers because that's hollow. No. But I really believe the corporate media is going to try to move on. I think it's time people don't let the media move on. Because at the end of the day, the days of
That's a great point.
the days of probably won't happen to me. No. It's not even that it might happen to you. It's likely that there will be a mass shooting somewhere that you're directly at or somewhere you've gone to in the past. It's likely that there will be shootings, more and more shootings, especially with a president that's creating a race war. Okay? So at the end of the day, we're not just fighting for our lives for health care. We're not just fighting for our lives for an education or a safe planet. You're just fighting for your lives, just to breathe and live. So the reason that they're allowed to keep doing this, when I say they, the politicians are allowed to just some empty words and then move on to responding to Trump's tweets.
Because we allow it.
It's because there's no bodies in the street.
Yeah.
There's no protests. And I'm not just talking about protests. I'm talking about hit them where it hurts economically. Let's see what companies have investments with the gun manufacturers. A lot of Wall Street banks that do.
Yeah.
You want to talk about divestment from pipelines? What about divestments from the banks that are attached to these gun manufacturers? If I look, I'll do a report on that tomorrow or Tuesday. It's a hell of a lot of banks, hell of a lot of corporations that you're giving your money to that have investments in Raytheon, Boeing, but also, other gun manufacturers. Remington.
Smith & Wesson. Glock. Read that.
Balthazar, $4.99, the super chat. Is it possible to stream without the live TV stream and have a separate tab open with the TV stream side by side, just sending out a link to both? Is it possible?
I guess I don't get what he means. I think he or she's referring to the reason why we got banned or something like. Yeah, it's possible for us to just be watching it and have the link and then talking to y'all when commercials on. But I mean, it's possible to do a live stream. That's what we did, but can't do that.
Period. We're not going live during a debate. I don't care if it's if it's in an underground bunker. I don't trust.
No, we can
YouTube.
go live during the debate as long as the TV's off and the camera's on us. We can talk.
Right, but then how are we going to watch the debate?
Oh no, the debate will be off. You know what I'm saying?
But how are we going to react to the debate if we don't have it in front of us?
Oh, during the commercials you talking about? Oh, we just turn our mic off right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So look, yeah, you know what? I had this argument with somebody the other day. Then I realized, why am I arguing with this person? Like, I get it. The whole world thinks Suge Knight killed Tupac. We know.
Jen wrote, if you don't know COINTELPRO, you immediately need to read about it to understand what's going on with the infiltration of leftism today. You know, Jen knows a lot of things that I don't know.
COINTELPRO.
I feel like Jen just reads internet dark web all day. She also knows a lot about like these tweeters, I didn't know who Laura Loomer is. Do you know who Laura Loomer is?
No.
Yeah. I don't know who a lot of these like right wingers or alt-right people, but Jen just knows all these things.
Yeah, no, dark money.
Dark money? I said dark web.
But dark web, dark money.
Oh. So, anyway.
COINTELPRO. I mean, he put all the words in one. I didn't understand.
She said COINTELPRO.
I know, but the guy that I was responding to, the reason
we'll have Jen do a video on it. COINTELPRO.
COINTELPRO.
So, thank you for watching. About to hit 4 o'clock Eastern. Spread the word. Become a member. Statuscoup.com/join. I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of outlets out there asking for your money. Donation drives. Become a member. Become a subscriber. Become a this. Become a that. Do you see them out in the streets? Do you see them reporting in the trenches? Do you see them breaking stories about CNN literally blocking Bernie Sanders supporters from cheering at the debate? We broke that story. Do you see them covering Flint 5 years after they've been poisoned? which is still a crisis, which, by the way, Ty and I, the members, if you're a Status Quo member, you saw the members video we did.
Yeah.
We had some very, very interesting meetings in Detroit about the Flint water crisis. And we'll see. We will also have some news about our documentary probably this week, Flushing Flint. Somebody asked about that. Can't say anything now, but we're going to have some positive news as far as getting our documentary to a larger platform.
The masses.
To the masses. So thank you for watching. Remember, most people are not lacking compassion in this corporation masquerading as a country. Most people have no fucking idea what the hell is going on.
And also, we're in New York. If you see us on the street, say what's up. We love the support. Appreciate it.
Peace out.
Peace.